You're tuned in to Horror Slop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is Horror Slop.
Alright, kicking things off with a personal favorite. It's messy, it's weird, and it sets the tone real fast. Story 1. Don't blink.
My sister is a genius. When she was about 13, she made this device that honestly still blows my mind. I've spent my entire life studying physics and I still don't know what she did, or how, which is probably for the best considering how this all played out. I don't know how she did it, but what I do know is in the summer of 2003 the laws governing matter and atomic mass didn't seem to affect her anymore. She was invisible to the human eye, and she was speaking a universal language we've never been able to identify or reproduce. Before I get into this, though, have you ever seen Firefly? Allow me to quote. I went to the best medic ed in Osiris, top 3% of my class, finished my internship in 8 months. Gifted is the term. This could have been written about me and my sisters. We come from a long line of gifted people. My father is a neurologist, my mother works for SpaceX, and my eldest sister is an artist whose work has been featured in galleries since she was 12. I'm a full-time research associate of high-energy density physics at a university I can't name without risking my career. And, like Simon Tam from Firefly before me, I don't tell you all of this to flaunt our intelligence or to make us look special. I tell you this so you can fully understand what I mean when I say Nirali made us all look like idiot children. I groaned inwardly. We'd had the knocking talk, but she was still so bad at respecting boundaries. Nirali, what did we say about knocking? Oh, she said, and sounded genuinely surprised. I didn't think about the door. What? I frowned and spun my chair around to look at her. Wait, empty. Alright, jerkhole. Where are you? What the, how? Did you hide the speakers again? I stood up, taking a moment to really look around the room. She'd pulled a prank like this before, hiding a complex set of speakers she'd modified to create a confluence of sound she could manipulate. It would sound like someone was anywhere in the room she specified. She'd even made it sound like she was moving around. It was really impressive, especially since she'd only been 10 at the time. She giggled again. No speakers. Just me. That was Nirali 4, you won't get it. Try me, I said, because I'm stubborn. I walked. Oh. I could hear the shrug in her voice. I just walked where the walls weren't. I squinted at the spot I thought she was standing. She sighed. It was a special sigh. It was the kind of sigh that told you someone much smarter than you was put out at having to dumb something down enough for you to understand. An embarrassed heat flooded my cheeks. I knew she was smarter than me, smarter than all of us, but it still made me feel like I'd failed simple math in front of Neil deGrasse Tyson and a puppy, and they were both disappointed. This wasn't helping. I mean, it was, I got the basic concept of what she was saying, but in terms of the practical application of physics it was a mess of meaningless science-y buzzwords. Nothing she said had any foundation in known science. She could have told me, I ate ice cream upside down and chanted purple backwards 30 times and the wall turned to jello, but only as long as I looked at it from a 45-degree angle, and it would have been exactly as scientifically sound as what she'd actually said. Oh yeah, she said, her voice pitched higher in excitement. I look like 100 versions of me laid on top of each other. Looking at my hands and stuff is kinda trippy, but I'm here. Cool. I had no idea what to do with this information. I can't believe you haven't noticed yet. Noticed what? I couldn't keep the flash of irritation out of my voice. It wasn't easy to accept the premise that she'd managed to trick physics into letting her pass through matter while being imperceptible to the human eye, but I'd had just about all the "how much dumber than Nirali are you" I could take for one day. She giggled again. Nor again is there anyone who loves or pursues or desires to obtain pain of itself, because it is pain, but because occasionally circumstances occur in which toil and pain can procure him some great pleasure. Wait, is that the lorem ipsum translation from the finibus bonorum et malorum? She giggled again. Yep. Want me to try something in Hindi? Yeah, I said, a little stunned and more than a little curious. Go for it. May he in whose lap shines forth the daughter of the mountain king, who carries the celestial stream on his head, on whose brow rests the crescent moon, whose throat holds poison and whose breast is support of a huge serpent, and who is adorned by the ashes on his body, may that chief of gods, the Lord of all, the destroyer of the universe, the omnipresent Shiva, the moon-like Sankara, ever protect me. Another giggle. English, I guess. I mean, it didn't sound like anything, but I understood you in English. Kinda. I mean, almost. If I try I can tell the sounds you're making don't match the meaning of the words I'm not hearing, but understanding. But the meaning overrides everything else, so I can't actually identify individual sounds or phrases. Do you think you could identify the physical linguistics if we went word by word? It may be the processing of complete phrases prevents the identification of individual phonemes. Maybe, I said, shrugging, still trapped in awe of this aspect of her discovery. We could try it. She thought this was hilarious. She started making regular trips to my room in this state, usually after lights out or when our parents were at work. I didn't blame her for sneaking. Sanaa wasn't into the science stuff, and if our parents knew what we'd been up to we'd have been grounded for life, especially since Nirali had already been banned from experimental projects at home. The last one had required a lot of external help and several $1,000s to clean up. But someone had to try and catalog this universal lexicon, and this was the only way we had access to it. Nirali? I whispered, cold unease settling on me like snow. To keep the paranoia at bay, I focused on the warm red readout of the clock above my desk. The slowly changing numbers were soothing and hypnotic. They dulled the edges of my fear until, at some point between midnight and 2 a.m., I fell asleep. I only realized this when Nirali finally whispered my name, pulling me back to reality. What's gone? I rubbed the sleep still clogging my vision and blinked at the clock above my desk. So late, had we really been laying on the floor for 2 hours? Nirali didn't answer. Not for a long time. Long enough that I thought maybe I'd dreamed her waking me up, entirely. Sleep was slow in coming as my body flushed the survival instinct from its veins, but eventually it must have come as the next thing I knew the sun was peeking through the windows and Nirali was watching me sleep. Nothing, she said, curling back under the covers before adding, thanks. I think it's drawn to the language, she said, pulling me out of a dream about superfluid. What is that? I don't know. Something big. Something old. Older than time, maybe. What's with the Sanaa talk? Older than time. She was always like this, caught somewhere between science and emotion, like the perfect cross between me and Sanaa. I think it allowed her to think abstractly enough to escape the box of the known to innovate, while remaining linear enough to build a new box to house her innovations. But sometimes it meant she didn't have the math to back it up. Sometimes it was just a feeling or the hint of a notion, but even then Nirali's feelings were always spot on, even if it took science a few decades to prove it. It was odd, I realized then, how a few weeks of exposure to what my mind told me was factually impossible opened me to the flexibility of the possible. I was surprised, too, when I noticed my first instinct wasn't to challenge her or demand proof just because what she said was beyond my experience or immediate comprehension. Instead, I would nod and accept that what she said, what she experienced, was simply truth and the limitations of my understanding couldn't change that. Only sometimes. I sat up, staring at the spot on the floor where she would have been seated. Then why are we still doing this, Nirali? I wouldn't have agreed if I knew you were in danger. I'm glad they can't see me, but I don't think that will be true much longer. The shadow behind the walls has been in my room all week. I can feel it following me around. It's listening now, but I don't think it will come in your room again. No, she said, the word wet and bent beneath an anguish no 13-year-old should have known. You don't understand. What could possibly be worth the risk? I didn't understand. Like the first time she described the math to me, this statement defied understanding. What do you mean you can't speak English anymore? You still have me. I didn't have a good answer for her. We'll find a way to fix it, was all I could say, and we both knew it wasn't enough. We also knew that it had to be, because we didn't have a choice. I felt her presence fade, and a few minutes later there was a quiet knock at my door. Nirali stood on the other side, shaking as silent sobs racked her narrow frame. I gathered her up, shutting the door behind her, and together we curled around each other on the floor and cried. We cried until we passed out from exhaustion and woke up long after the sun had risen. Nirali? She nodded, mute, a sadness hanging over her shoulders. She shook her head. A shudder of revulsion rocked through me at the sound of each mangled phoneme. I've never been so disgusted and terrified in my life. I could hear her voice, but it was dripping with caustic venom, dragging over hot coals, buried in the deepest ocean and clawing at the edges of sanity with angry talons. It was wrong. And to this day it was the most vile, viscerally upsetting experience of my life. And yet, despite my mind rebelling from the mere sound of her voice warped around these hideous words, I still knew what she'd meant as if she'd said it in English.
Anyway, let's lighten the mood with something fun and... Nah, just kidding. It gets worse. Hit it.
I answered a spam call, by First Breath 1. Hello, is this Mr. Henderson? My wife was murdered in 2015. There really isn't an easy way to say that other than getting it out of the way early. It was a random robbery gone wrong. One rainy night, some sick tweaking fuck snuck into our house and shot her. The suspect was caught, 2 days later, and sentenced to life in prison. He still sits there today. I don't have any friends, anymore. Not really. Sometimes. I guess it is easy to look for companionship in all the wrong places. Ah. Senior, said the pretty, calm voice on the other line. She sounded familiar, but I blamed that notion on the half-empty bottle of wine. She giggled. Something about that laugh was very familiar. My name is Emily, and I work with his credit card company, she said in a rehearsed tone. Unfortunately, we cannot divulge which firm over the phone if you are not on the account, which, you just admitted yourself, of course. Okay. I am guessing that you are Mr. Henderson's son, she mumbled while audibly thumbing through papers. Yes ma'am, that's right. But it's been years. I could not possibly be stuck with the old man's debt, right? I asked hopefully. Well, let's check, shall we? there was a panicked shuffling and opening of books in the background. "I am so sorry, sir," she replied with a regretful tone. "The rules are in one of those 3-ring binders, and they are very difficult to find. Please hold for a moment." Okay, of course," I said, genuinely starting to grow worried and a bit flustered. "What can I do?" My wife worked for a credit card company before we met. Her name was also Emily. The voice sounded like hers, but it was younger. More hopeful than I remembered. The line was silent. Look, I know that's a weird question. But please, I think we know each other. I can't give that information out. She started. Yes. She said, astonished. How did you know that? Who is this? It was impossible. Could it be the storm? The anniversary of her death? Sounds dreamy, she replied with a laugh and a sigh. Are you one of those psychics? I am serious. You will marry this man, Emily. He will buy you the ring you always wanted. The ceremony will be in a beautiful one in your hometown. Your entire family will be there, including Aunt Zelda and your grandma from Tennessee. I like this fortune cookie, she said with dripping sarcasm. But 2 years later, on July 9, 2015, you will be murdered in the home you share together. So what do I do? First, I tried to tell her to avoid the house that day. To never date me, to stay away forever and find a better life somewhere else. But somewhere in the middle of my rant, the line disconnected to the tune of a blood-curdling scream. I called back to find a non-working number. She never answered again. Emily was by my side. FB1.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
Are You Okay? By Aggressive by 5408. As the days of my life draw to a close, I feel the need to explain the events that brought me here. I've told this story hundreds of times since it happened, and no one believes me. I wouldn't believe it either, if I'm being honest. And that's why I feel it needs to be told. Be prepared, this may sound like the ramblings of a madman. Don't do weird drugs. My friends and I liked drugs. Not the hard stuff. We'd smoke weed, take mushrooms, drop acid. I got really into it. We were like modern-day hippies. Long hair, comfortable clothes, no real plans. We always had fun. I never felt like I was in danger. I had issues, sure, but I dealt with them in my own way. It was always me, Brian, and Roger. We'd known each other since school. None of us had done much with our lives. We worked just enough to get by, lived for the weekend, and found comfort in our little bubble. One night, I drove over to Brian's for our usual weekend routine. Parked, grabbed my bag, walked in. Brian had a nice setup, big TV, tons of video games, surround sound speakers that made every movie feel real. A unicorn? You serious? How long did it last? He looked fine. Alive. Seemed normal. I gave in. The doorbell rang. We dimmed the lights, turned on the TV, and put on music. Brian handed us each 2 pills and a glass of water. We took them. You okay? I asked. Then Brian had to pee. I heard the flush. Suddenly, I had to go too. Why is everything made of metal? I realized I was high and collapsed on the couch, closing my eyes. I saw colors I didn't recognize. I saw monkeys running through a jungle. Bright green leaves, vines. I swung like Tarzan. I felt like a king. Then I got scared. And I was walking out of the bathroom again. Roger was on the floor. The room was black this time. Still smelled like oil. The walls weren't right. Didn't we already have this conversation? Brian smiled. You've been standing there a while. Why don't you lie down? I lay next to him and closed my eyes. This time it was darker. A room with no lights. A loud ringing in my ears. I felt small. I wanted a girlfriend like Roger. I wanted to be back in the jungle. Then I opened my eyes. Roger was on the floor. He looked scared this time. Are you okay? Yeah. I got on the couch and shut my eyes. Roger's eyes were red. So were Brian's. Are you okay? I opened the door and peeked out. They were standing there. Red eyes. Roger looked worse with his gray skin, mouth twitching. Tore through my skin. I bled. I screamed. Roger was on the floor. Brian is on the couch. They attacked me again. Like chimps. I ran. Through the vase. Locked the bathroom door. They scratched at the door. Punched it. I cried. I just wanted to go home. A knock. This is the police. We got a 911 call. Is everything alright? Relief. They knocked. Red eyes. The cop lunged. He bit me. Punched me. I screamed. I stepped out of the bathroom. Bro, are you okay? Brian asked. What happened to you? You're covered in blood, said Roger. He looked scared. I grabbed the lamp. Holy shit, bro. Brian shouted. You're with me. It's okay. I punched him. Ran upstairs. I hid in the bathroom. I heard Roger moaning. Brian trying to help him. Brian knocked. Bro, Roger's hurt bad. You smashed my mirror. You're bleeding everywhere. Fuck you. I'm not falling for it. Another knock. Get in here now. Brian shouted. My lawyer said I wouldn't be held responsible. You killed your buddy with that lamp. I wanted to die. I didn't feel like one. Ever since that night, every time I close my eyes, I see Roger face down on the floor. He always looks happy. Just fine, he says. Feels like marshmallows. I ain't mad at you.
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back out now. Next story's already watching.
I blinked. I looked at our mutual friend, Todd, then back at Ed. Listen, what? What? K3. I thought you said it was K3. Then why did he call it K4? K3. He calls it that, 'cause the high reminds him of being on spice or something. But this shit is like on another level. And it ain't cannabinoid nothing. I shifted in my seat. Okay. I'm not. I mean, you remember what happened last year, yeah? Yeah, no. I got you. Listen, though, I've done this shit 4 times already. Haven't had one bad trip yet. First trip I was just like, high off my ass. Nothing made sense. Second trip I was like an astronaut, bro. I think I saw what exists outside the universe. I said I saw it, not that I remember it. But it was wild. I was warming up to the idea. How long does the high last? Muffin, his dog, growled from the other side of the room. Is she okay? She's fine, dude, he said. Thank yourself, person, you blittering snarch, Eddie said. Then he resumed laughing. Thanks, Ed. Todd popped his pill in his mouth. I did the same. After a moment, he said, how you feeling? I looked at her. She was standing in her crate, baring teeth. The hair on her back stood on end. I don't think she's okay, man. I usually don't, Todd said. Every hit's different, and every person's different. All I know is, it's fucking fun. Okay. Ed didn't look like he was having much fun. He doesn't look like he's having much fun, I said. What? I know. I stared at the floor. The way the colors on the carpet swirled in and out was always so mesmerizing. It's going to be a bad trip, you know. What? It's going to be a bad trip, he said again, in a deeper voice. Todd said all the trips he'd had were fun. That doesn't mean it's impossible to have a bad one. Oh. Pastor Lewis doesn't sound like that. Man, who the fuck is Pastor Lewis, said Pastor Lewis, in Todd's voice. What? Said Todd. He was crawling on the ceiling, looking down at me in a way that should have broken his neck. Cool how your dog can bark without moving her mouth. Can you sit down? You're weirding me out. He was indeed sitting. I looked up, nobody on the ceiling, and no indication that anyone had been. He was doubled over with laughter. Howling, aching laughs. He held his stomach. It ain't that, Todd said. The spiders in your ears are singing. Todd couldn't stop laughing long enough to respond. But he didn't need to. I could hear it too. Dude, I said. It's the song from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Todd was still laughing. Far harder and longer than the situation warranted. How am I seeing words I spoke? I asked. I grabbed at the R in the Dwarfs so I could rearrange the word, but the R slapped me just as Muffin barked again. Bark smack. Just like that. A single bark. Sounded like Satan. I sat back down. Easy there, Dwarfs, I said. I'll just spell it right next time, damn. Come downstairs, said Muffin, demonically. I couldn't see her, but somehow I just knew she was standing at the bottom of the stairs, on 2 legs, with her head upside down. You know when you just know a dog will look like that? It was one of those times. Go downstairs, said Muffin, from so close behind me she must have been inside my head. He was crawling on the ceiling, looking down at me in a way that should have broken his neck. He was crawling on the ceiling, looking down at me in a way that should have broken his neck. Stop repeating that sentence. I don't know, man. I started crawling towards the hallway. And he was crawling on the ceiling, looking down at me in a way that should have broken his N. "Shit," I said. "Here we go." Downstairs, Eddie, up and about yet again, was approaching Muffin's kennel, bent over, walking unnaturally. Wide-eyed, mouth open. Out of his mind. Muffin was howling and barking hysterically, but also silently. "That's weird," I said. "It's gonna be a bad trip," he said again. He was crawling on the ceiling, looking down at me in a way that should have broken his neck. "Why is everything repeating?" I asked aloud. "Why is everything repeating?" I asked aloud. The water spilled into the swirling vortex that was his floor. "I can't remember." "Hey, Roy Rogers. What did I do with my water, man? Did I eat it?" Roy Rogers didn't respond. He was too busy floating on an upside-down chair that was attached to the ceiling. "SNRCH," said his chair. Roy Rogers, who was also my Uncle Mo, tipped his hat. "Let me know if you find it," I said. I could have sworn I had it H-. Bark 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 bark. Ah. Bark 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 bark. "Ed, stop." I heard myself say, I said. "Why?" His face was static. Like when you turn your TV to a channel you don't own. "Ed, put her down, and get that static off your face." He was crawling on the ceiling, looking down at me in a way that should have broken his neck. "My face is static," Eddie said through the static. He started clawing at it. "And who's crawling on the ceiling, looking down at you in a way that should have broken his neck?" That sentence seemed out of place. "It's gonna be a bad trip, you know." I put the knife down. "Ed, stand up." "Wait. No." I stood up, Eddie knifed, putting the said down. "Damn it. There we go." I turned around. Pastor Lewis was at the top of the stairs. But it wasn't Pastor Lewis. It was a perfectly black figure. "Pastor Lewis, black is slimming on you. Help me," I said. I felt asphalt. "Help me. I'm falling." Now I saw lights coming on from the side of the pit. "Come upstairs," said a single voice from behind me that was also Todd, Pastor Lewis, Eddie, and my mother at once. "This isn't a bad trip, Kevin," the voice continued. "It's real. And you know that. What you thought was real was the trip. Time, space, those are illusions. This is what exists behind the veil. This is the nothingness that exists outside the universe. This is the nothingness that awaits you at the end." "No." Falling. "Get him to his feet. Come upstairs. And get that thing off his head. Come upstairs. Join the static. 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 Bark. Are you okay?" "Hey, kid," said the officer. "You okay?" What? What happened?" "I think I was saving Muffin," I said. "Who's Muffin? The dog?" "Yeah." "Saving her from what?" "My friend was going to kill her, I think. Then he tried to cut his face off because it was all static." Holy shit. My now sober brain processed unsober words. Holy shit. That stuff was insane. "Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment, dumbass. You're lucky you didn't jump off the roof. Can you stand?" Wait, I said. What happened to Todd and Eddie? Are they okay? He looked at me. No, kid. They're not okay. This is why you don't fuck with this stuff. Now we have to clean up what's left. Sit there. Shit. Paramedics. 2 gurneys. Ambulance. I came to a full 36 hours later, in my own bed. Fuck, I don't know. All I know is that the black figure is still standing at the end of my hallway, asking me to join it. I can still hear static.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
I moved into my new apartment about 3 months ago. It's a decently sized place in an older building downtown, the kind of place with creaky floors, high ceilings, and a constant, low hum in the walls, like the building itself is quietly breathing. It's not glamorous, but I like it. Cheap rent, nice light, and mostly quiet neighbors. A week after I moved in, I started hearing thumps at night. I figured it was the upstairs tenant at first, maybe they dropped something, or had a hyper dog. But the pattern was weird. 1 thump. Then silence. Then 2 quick ones. Then nothing for hours. Like someone was knocking, but not on my door. I ignored it. Cities are noisy. Then I started noticing cold spots. Specific spots, too. Like, one corner of the bedroom would feel like a fridge had been left open there, even with the window shut and the heater running. That was when I joked to my friend that the place might be haunted. I laughed, she didn't. I crawled in. Dozens of them. All black and white. All of the same man. Some close-ups of his face. Others from a distance. A few were of him sleeping. The most recent one, clearly taken with a phone camera, was of him walking into my building. I recognized the lobby wallpaper. I recognized the timestamp. It was 2 days ago. He lives here now. I backed out slowly, quietly, not even daring to breathe too hard. I put the hatch back, shoved the bookshelf over it, and didn't sleep that night. The next day, I called my landlord. Asked if the unit had a crawlspace or access tunnels for maintenance. He said no. Sounded confused. Said there used to be a boiler room system under the building in the 60s, but it had been filled in decades ago. When I asked about previous tenants, he hesitated and said, "People don't usually stay long in that unit." Someone had posted a photo from inside a hidden room. It was the same room. Same concrete walls. Same folding chair. But now, there was a new photo on the wall. Sleeping.
Whew, telling gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
The first time I saw you, I was surprised I could see you. You had a small turtle in your hands. You kept calling it Michelangelo, which I assumed was a nod to the Ninja Turtles. You tossed your long, brown hair behind your back and knelt down to place the turtle on the ground. You were excited to see it wobbling on the grass. It reminded me of my cat and how I used to play with him when I was your age. I saw you grow older. Your body changing. You grew taller, your body slimmer, your face as beautiful as ever. I witnessed as others started to notice you in a different way. The stares from the jealous girls. The googly eyes from the young boys. As all this happened before my eyes, I noticed myself changing too. I got older. I got weaker. I got disillusioned. Bruised. I lost my will to escape my painful life. All I had was this window to your life to keep me going. I lived my days through yours. Watching you was enough entertainment for me. You couldn't know the different ways you saved me from bad thoughts, bad days, and all the pain I had been suffering from. I wanted to thank you for allowing me to live again. For allowing me to dream again. I wanted to thank you, but just couldn't bring myself to you. I couldn't go talk to you. I didn't know how. If only you knew about my window. But not me. You kept me going. I had my little window. A little crack high up on the wall of this basement I call home. He didn't like that he couldn't break me down. He didn't know about the little crack. So he kept me to see how long I could stay like this. It is a sick game, that I've been winning thanks to you. But then, he noticed you. And I knew what fate awaited you if he laid his monstrous hands on you. Whatever strength I have left, I've collected it and prepared myself to finally do something about it. They will find bodies dangling in the walls of the basement. I've learned to live with the smell by now, but they will notice it the second they step down here. There are a lot of young girls in the walls of my room down here. Tell them to treat them delicately. They were good girls. They've been my companions. My friends. Most of all, I want to thank you. You're the only thing that kept me going. You were my light. And now, I'm escaping thanks to you. Escaping this awful room. Escaping this awful life. Even if it means I finally get to die. With love. We found this letter in our mailbox. After contacting the police, they entered the home of our neighbor across the street. Over a span of 5 days, they found a total of 15 bodies hidden in different parts of his house. He had plans to kidnap our daughter, but thanks to this mysterious stranger, his plan was intercepted. We still have not found the girl who wrote this. We like to think she made it out alive, but, sadly, it isn't likely as Ryan Morehouse is also missing. We don't even know her name. But we did find the little crack in the wall, the one where she saw my daughter grow up from. Part 2.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
My husband went missing 6 months ago. Just went out to work one day and never came home. It was a horrible shock to the whole neighborhood, because things like that just didn't happen in our little slice of white picket fence suburbia. The police launched an investigation, and the neighborhood watch sent out search parties, but no one ever found any evidence to indicate what had happened to him. Our families were devastated. Recently, the missing posters have been taken down or papered over. The updates from the police became less frequent and dwindled away. I accepted that, hard as it was to admit, my Rick wasn't coming back. A week ago, I was in the back garden watering my petunias when I heard the garden gate creak open. I jerked my head in that direction and, there he was. Exactly the same as he was the day he disappeared. Same windswept blonde hair and bright blue eyes, same curl to his pink lips. I was in shock. Our families had mourned for him, and yet there he was, standing in our garden like he had just popped out for milk or something. When I asked where he had been, he said he didn't know. He couldn't remember anything about the last 6 months. Look, I understand how crazy this all sounds, I do. Our families would never believe me, and I can't go to the police unless I want to end up in a straitjacket. But I just know that the man sleeping next to me isn't my husband. I don't know what to do. I know I should be happy, but I'm not. I'm terrified. I don't know much about anything supernatural or paranormal, I don't even like watching horror movies. But something about this whole situation makes my skin crawl. Just let me explain why I'm so sure. Once I've done that, hopefully one of you will believe me, and you'll be able to tell me what to do. Then it was the golf. A few days ago, when he was out visiting his mom, I recorded a golf tournament that was showing on the TV. It was one of Rick's favorite golfers that was competing, and he never missed it. Once, he even skipped out on an anniversary dinner just to watch a championship. Only, when he came home from his parents and I told him what I'd done, he just seemed unbothered. Like, he said thanks and everything, and then he asked if I wanted to get dinner. He didn't even watch it, and that's just so out of character for him. Then one night I woke up around 2 a.m. to see Rick's face inches from mine, just looking at me with these blank eyes. I kinda gave this nervous laugh and asked, "Baby, what are you doing?" And he didn't answer. For like a solid 30 seconds. He just stared, almost like he was looking right through me. Then he suddenly smiled and said, "Sorry, honey. Sometimes I just can't believe this is real." Then he just rolled over and went to sleep. I didn't get much sleep after that, myself. But you know why I'm dead certain that man isn't my husband? He doesn't have a scar. If he was really Rick, he'd have a scar on the side of his forehead shaped like the golf club I hit him with. But there's nothing. Not a mark. Honestly, I'm this close to going out tonight and digging up my petunias just to make sure he's still under there. I don't know what I'm sharing a bed with, but I know it's not my husband. So what the hell am I going to do?
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse, in the best way.
I will start from the beginning. But as the slabs of raw meat hit the tile, the urge to consume returned. The same frantic craving washed down my throat and into the pit of my stomach, and before I could process the reality of the situation, I was shoveling the cold, wet meat from the floor and into my mouth. The slimy, rotting bacon slipping down into my stomach was a pleasure I'd never experienced before. I felt full and well, no longer exhausted and malnourished, like this was the ice-cold water in the middle of a desert. I could feel it shift inside of me, consuming the goodness of its first meal in days, and I sat with my back pressed against the counter when I heard it. Barely audible, like a faint whisper. "Thank you, Mama." When my tire crunched over something, returning home from another unsatisfactory shopping trip, a splatter of gray fur and guts painted the road and I stopped crying. That smell. Clotted blood, raw and torn meat, it was salivating. "Please." The voice echoed in my thoughts, however it had gotten to a point where I was unsure if it was my baby begging for it, or me. The dead critter, what I can only imagine was a rabbit, didn't twitch or cry out. It was dead on impact, its small skull shattered under the car and its guts ripped from its belly. There was no hesitation in my actions and the scene still haunts me. I didn't even have the decency to take the corpse home before I started digging into its organs, ripping its miniature intestines, lungs and heart out and chewing the fleshy, blood-soaked meat until there was nothing but fur and skin left to rot on the road. I stood in the bathroom, staring at my inflated stomach in the full-length mirror, and demanded answers. It was the first time in months I had gotten a real look at my body in full, and I was horrified. Without clothes to hide myself, I saw what the baby was really doing to me. Sucking the nutrients from me, my skin was pale and blotchy all over, my bones poking from each joint and my ribs fighting against the tumor-like lump that was my belly. This wasn't a child anymore, no child would rinse me of life like this. My baby wasn't going to infect me like a parasite, I wanted it out. I called the ambulance first, anticipated the time they would take to get to me before I bled out onto the linoleum. When the responder assured me that help would be with me soon, and that I should stay on the phone and talk to her before acting on my impulse, I hung up and grabbed single-blade facial razor from the sink drawer. One mental health assessment and grief counseling meeting later, and I was discharged back to my apartment. On the records, I had a mental break a month and a half after learning of my early-stage miscarriage. The pain of losing my child and isolating myself for so long led to another suicide attempt, only this time opting for a more metaphorical end than the normal person. Of course this was ridiculous to hear, but I smiled and nodded, agreeing that this tragic failed pregnancy was in fact the cause for such drastic self-injury, and cooperating with the teams and showing such a fast recovery led me to my swift and trusted discharge. Tonight marks a week since I returned to my home, returned to the nursery and the trauma of the last months. I was pleasantly surprised to hear my baby calling for me the moment I shut the world out, cooing and gurgling like a newborn. While I did get sent home from the hospital without my baby in a carrier, bundled in blankets and motherly love, those things were all waiting for me in the nursery. My little newborn, taken from the womb by my own hands and placed carefully in his bassinet, waiting for his mother to feed, cuddle, and love him. What do I do?
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah, that's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
I crouch by my child's bed for the 3rd night, face on the blankets, weeping. There's no need to be afraid. I'm Andy's friend. Like I said, I'm Andy's friend. I was quite disturbed when he didn't come to bed 2 nights ago. Normally, I'd find him at a friend's house, but I couldn't find him anywhere. I returned here to hear you talking to the police, and that's when I knew something was wrong. Finally managing to speak, I stammer, "What are you? A protector? Are you saying you can help me find Andy?" Not quite. Actually, I've already found him. I just can't get him out. I can't guide you there. But I can take you there. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but it sounds terrible. I don't know if I really trust this thing, but it's the only lead I've got. If you can really do that, let me get my phone. Of course. I'm not sure if that's really true. Wouldn't it be better to at least know what I'm working with here? I consider turning it on anyway, but decide that it doesn't really matter. When I get under that bed, it's either going to kill me, or take me to Andy. Knowing what it looks like won't change that. I look around, but can't see anything. Of course, it's dark. The creature is nowhere to be seen. I turn my flashlight on, exposing a bare concrete floor. I crawl out, and my heart drops as I see Andy lying on the metallic cot. He seems unharmed, but he's tied up, blindfolded, and gagged. "Andy," I whisper scream. I almost normal screamed, but decide against it, not knowing if the person who did this is nearby. I get to work untying him, while trying to comfort him. "Mom's here for you. Everything will be okay now. I promise." Even after ungagging him, he's silent, most likely too terrified or traumatized to speak. I start to untie the next closest child, but then I hear footsteps coming from outside, getting closer to the room. I think to the gun still in my pocket, but don't want to risk anything, especially with Andy here. For all I know, it's multiple people coming, and they could all have guns too, and would probably be a better shot than I am. I crouch back down under the bed. "PSST, thing, get us out of here." They start getting closer, and I know the cot doesn't provide much cover. I grip the gun in my hands. Luckily, I don't need to use it, as I feel the warmth start spreading itself across my back again. Apologies, the thing whispers, but provides no explanation for its tardiness. After another disgusting transport, Andy and I are back on our warm carpet. I hold him close and sob, and feel the warmth lay itself on both our shoulders, in an apparent attempt at comfort. I tuck Andy into his bed, and it's not long before the police call me, asking how I got into that building, and how I even found it in the first place. I'm unable to give them a proper answer, but I don't care right now. I'm just overwhelmed with joy to have Andy back.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
Someone's paying me a lot to guard an empty field, by Mortanks. 24/7 shift work, immediate start. We can only communicate in writing. It's more convenient for us. I didn't care, as long as they hired me, they could use smoke signals for all I cared. They asked me to briefly write who I was and why I applied. So I told them the truth. Soon enough, they replied that I was a good fit. They asked when I could start. It all felt suspicious as hell, but I didn't give a damn anymore. I had literally nothing to lose. I accepted the job. Then they texted me a GPS coordinate and told me to be there at exactly 8 a.m. the next morning. The location was a train station parking lot not far from where I lived. Two thoughts immediately crossed my mind. Either they were going to harvest my organs, or I just walked into some kind of pyramid scheme. Still, as sketchy as it all sounded, I was there by 8 the next morning. I had no idea what, or who, I was supposed to look for. That's when a pudgy, bald, middle-aged guy walked up to me. He looked like a school janitor or something. Then he said. The drive was pretty uneventful. I punched the coordinates into my GPS, it was easy enough to follow the directions. The trip took about an hour and a half. Once I got off the highway, I passed through a small town, one of those typical, quiet places. From there, it was just another 10 minutes down a narrow road, and then the GPS told me to turn onto a small dirt path leading into the woods. There were tire tracks in the soil, so clearly others had driven there before. I figured it was safe enough and drove in. The trees were dense, and their branches scraped against the sides of the car as I made my way through. Then suddenly, I emerged from the forest. A wide, empty lot opened up in front of me. My phone beeped, "You have arrived at your destination." It really was just an empty field. No trees grew here, or maybe they'd been cleared out. The grass was dry and yellow, like it hadn't rained in ages, and clearly no one had watered it either. I had no idea what I was supposed to be guarding out here in the middle of nowhere. But fine, what else did I have going on? Then I remembered the manual's note, I was only allowed to work in the provided uniform. So I got out of the car and changed. I looked like some awkward mall cop reject. Just then, my phone buzzed. Another text from that same number. Welcome to the company. Good luck on your first shift. Your 24 hours have officially begun. Time passed slowly. At first, I just sat in the car, unsure of what I was supposed to do. I ate one of the sandwiches. By the afternoon, I got tired of sitting and decided to take a walk around the field, to see what I was even guarding. But I didn't find anything. It was just an empty lot. No fence, no buildings. The tree line roughly marked the boundary of the area. Some of the trees had signs posted on them. Private property, no trespassing. I got hungry again, so I went back to the car and ate another sandwich. Then I waited some more. That's when I remembered the manual. Maybe there was more about what I was supposed to be doing. I flipped through it and read the next set of instructions. No one is allowed on the property. If anyone enters, politely ask them to leave. No audio or video recordings may be made on the premises. Do not fall asleep during your shift. Perform your duties diligently. Do not leave the property unless specifically instructed to do so, or you will not be paid. If you find a package on the premises, place it in the trunk and bring it to the rendezvous point. That part really made me pause. What kind of package would show up here? Dropped from a plane, maybe? I started getting nervous, thinking maybe I'd gotten myself into something illegal. But then again, why would they make me sign an employment contract? The mafia doesn't really do paperwork. I laughed to myself at the idea. Then flipped ahead in the manual. There were no more general instructions, so I kept reading. A few pages later, the booklet laid out a time-based schedule with specific tasks. But even the first one struck me as strange. 0:45, please feed the dog. What dog? Was this some kind of cover story, like in the movies where they use code names for things? Or, was there actually a dog out here somewhere? Whatever the case, I had already missed the time. I let it go. 2:22, please drive the metal rod into the ground at the northwest corner of the lot. Metal rod? I hadn't seen anything like that. Maybe I missed it. 4:30, please remove the metal rod. Place it back where you found it. 8:41, please politely ask the boy on the bicycle to leave. I arrived after those times, so I didn't pay attention to them. 16:10, for your own safety, please remain inside the provided vehicle until 16:30. That one made my stomach drop. I checked my phone, it was 16:01. I stared out the windshield, counting down the seconds in dread. 16 hours 9 minutes and 57 seconds. 16 hours 9 minutes and 58 seconds. 16 hours 9 minutes and 59 seconds. 16 hours and 10 minutes. And suddenly the air around me felt heavier. Still. Nothing happened. The field remained exactly the same. The trees swayed gently in the breeze. It was still just a mild May Wednesday. But I didn't dare move. I stayed curled up in the car until 16:30 on the dot. The only thing I saw was a magpie taking off from the field. Nothing out of the ordinary. At 16:30 I finally got out and walked around the lot. Still the same. Just like when I'd arrived around 10 in the morning. I was getting seriously anxious now. What the hell was this job? It felt like some messed up game show. I half expected to find myself on YouTube the next day as the butt of some elaborate prank. I climbed back into the car and flipped open the manual again. After that, I had to know what else was in there. Among the instructions, only one remained. If you are lacking anything, please inform us via the contact number. So I decided to keep reading the rest of the day's schedule, see what I still needed to be aware of. 1800 hours, when the vehicle arrives, please indicate whether you followed today's instructions. If you did, raise your right hand high enough to be visible. If you didn't, please raise your left hand. I let out a long sigh. Another meaningless task. What vehicle? Why do I need to signal whether I followed their weird little rules? And what happens if I raise the left hand? A bit farther off, near the trees, someone was there. A young woman in a red dress with white spots. She was having a picnic. There was a red checkered blanket laid out, a picnic basket, a bottle of wine, and some snacks. I had zero desire to walk over. Who the hell picnics at almost 11 p.m. in the middle of nowhere? And how the hell did she get here? I swallowed hard to summon the courage. No way I was risking my payment after enduring the whole damn day. I braced myself and walked over slowly, trying to hide how freaked out I was. The woman was sitting there, cheerful and smiling with a lovely face, struggling to open the wine. She hadn't even noticed me. "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm afraid you can't be here. This is private property," I said politely, though my voice trembled from the nerves. "Oh my God, you scared me," she squealed. "I didn't even see you there." She seemed totally normal. Like it was a sunny Saturday morning and she was just relaxing in the park. I glanced around, confused and tense. What the hell is this now? But the guide had been clear, I had to ask her to leave. So I stuck to the plan. I'm afraid I can't, ma'am, I replied with a slightly trembling voice. You can't picnic here. Please leave. All right, she said softly. But could you help me up? Would you mind packing up the picnic basket for me? She asked with a sweet smile. I didn't answer. Just nodded anxiously. Anything to get her gone. I bent down to fold the red blanket and grabbed the wine bottle, and I took my eyes off her for just a second. But when I looked up, she was gone. Like she'd never existed at all. I panicked. Sweat poured down my back. My throat tightened like I'd swallowed a stone. There was no sign of her. No movement. No sound. Nowhere to hide, yet she had simply vanished. Without saying a word, I walked back to the car. I got in, started it up, and turned on every light I could. I stared out the windshield, barely moving, for what felt like hours, until dawn finally broke. That's when I saw a herd of deer emerging from the woods, slowly crossing the field. One of them stopped, stared at my car for a moment, then followed the rest. I was getting really tired, but there wasn't much time left in my shift. I didn't get out of the car until the sky was fully lit. There were no more tasks listed in the handbook for Thursday, so I could finally relax. I walked to the spot on the field where the woman had been picnicking the night before. But there was no trace of her. No blanket, no basket, nothing. Instead, there was a small box. A tiny wooden crate, carefully sealed, with a red ribbon tied around it. 2 stickers were on the front, one read, "Fragile," the other, oddly, said, "Do not open until 13 hours 78 minutes. I didn't even bat an eye at that, just another strange thing in a string of strange things. I remembered the instructions, so I picked it up and placed it on the back seat of the car. I waited a few more hours. The day grew warmer. The sun lit up the entire field, peaceful and serene. It felt like I was just camping out in nature. At last, 10 o'clock came. Soon after, I received a text. Thank you for your service. Your shift is now over. Please return to the rendezvous point. Attached was a GPS coordinate, back to the train station, where I'd first met the chubby man. The drive back was rough. I stopped in the small town for food and coffee to keep myself awake. I had eggs and bacon, my first hot meal after a bizarre 24 hours. It felt surprisingly good to leave that strange yet peaceful place behind. When I arrived at the station, the same man was already there, looking just as tired and dull as before. I don't even know where you were, he said flatly and just shrugged. But here's your envelope. They said there's a little bonus in there since you followed all the instructions. Who said that? I asked immediately. The company. I don't know, man. I just go where they tell me. They pay great, and that's all I care about. Go home. Get some sleep, the man added as he got into his car. If they gave you a bonus already, they'll probably call you again. I hesitated. That place was strange. I was wary of it, but something about it pulled me back. That kind of money, just for following some rules and paying attention to weird tasks. I said yes. Once again, I was at the train station at 8 a.m. The car showed up, same brown Dodge Caravan as last time, and the same fat guy was driving it. He looked cheerful this time, already grinning at me knowingly. I gave him an awkward smile and nodded. Same setup as before. He handed me the $1,000 up front, a cardboard box with my gear, and the day's instructions. Then I took the keys and drove out of the city. The coordinates led to the same place again, through the small town, into the woods, and finally to the field. I parked in the same corner of the property, where I could keep a good eye on everything. But this time, I figured I'd read the manual ahead of time, didn't want to get caught off guard like before. The handbook was identical to the one I had last time, with just one difference: instead of Wednesday, it now said Saturday on the cover. The rules were the same as last time. But the schedule? Completely different. 451, do not worry about the horses, they're just grazing. You may approach them if you'd like. Missed that one again. 1129, a bird must be seen flying high. If you don't see it, immediately text the contact number and leave the premises. 1334, please put on the raincoat provided in the box and do not re-enter the vehicle until the rain has stopped. When done, place the raincoat in the trunk. 1546, let the hikers pass. Greet them back if they greet you. 19 hours 91 minutes, do not die. What? I froze in disbelief. What kind of time is 19 hours 91 minutes, and what the hell does "do not die" mean? I'd already been creeped out by this place, but no one said I could die doing this job. I had a couple of hours until the raincoat thing, so I decided to take a walk. It was nice out, and I needed to stretch my legs. The air was fresh, and I felt more prepared this time. I had snacks, drinks, even brought coffee and soda. After a while, I relieved myself behind a tree, no one around, after all, then sat down to eat. At around 1330, the sky began to darken. I'd already pulled out the bright yellow raincoat from the box and stood beside the car, waiting. At exactly 1334, rain began to pour down in sheets. There were clouds, sure, but not the kind that should cause a downpour like this. Something felt off. Rain drummed against the plastic hood of my coat. Every part of me wanted to run to the car, but the rules were clear. I wasn't risking it. And this rain. It felt salty, almost like seawater. But we were nowhere near the ocean. Then I noticed something strange. Toward the center of the field, there was a large patch where no rain was falling. Everywhere else, it poured, but in that one square-shaped section, not a single drop. I made my way there slowly, boots sucking into the thick, muddy earth. I stepped into the center of the dry square and looked up, nothing above me. No covering. No drone. No dome. Nothing. But not a single drop touched me. All around, a storm raged. Inside that square. Absolute calm. When the rain finally stopped, I trudged back to the car and placed the raincoat in the trunk, just like they asked. Until 1546, I mostly relaxed again, watching a show on my phone. It was actually kind of comfortable, in a weird way. That's when I noticed something from the corner of my eye. Two people were walking past my car, both dressed in full hazmat suits, each carrying a large bag. They moved across the field like they knew exactly where they were going. One of them stopped in front of my car and waved. I waved back. Were these the hikers I was supposed to greet? The two figures continued toward the center of the field. I stepped out of the car and kept watching. They walked the entire field perimeter, stopping briefly at each corner to examine something. They seemed to be talking to each other, but I was too far to hear. Then, like they'd finished some task, they calmly walked into the woods and vanished between the trees. I figured it was best not to follow them. Easier to pretend this was all perfectly normal. But now, 1900 hours was drawing dangerously close. Open up. Please. Open the door. I didn't move. Frozen, I just sat there, unsure what to do. The man grew more frantic, desperately yanking at the door handle, shouting through the mask. And then, in the blink of an eye, he was gone. Just, gone. One moment screaming, the next emptiness. No trace. I sat motionless, stunned. Minutes passed, felt like hours. My phone buzzed again. Thank you, Stephen, for following our instructions. You've done a great service to the company. Your perseverance will not go unrewarded. A reply came instantly. No. That man is doing the job he was hired to do. I didn't write back. I locked myself inside the car again, just like last time. I sat in the car, still drowsy. My hands rested on the steering wheel, and I was ready, so ready, to drive off the moment I sensed anything even slightly off. That's when I noticed the time on my watch. It was 21:41. I was supposed to check the field to see if anyone was there. Every part of me resisted the idea of getting out. But something pulled me. And maybe it wasn't just the money anymore. I stepped out of the car but left the headlights on, just in case. That's when I saw it, someone was already out there. Another figure. He was sitting on a small wooden bench. An old man. Just like the woman the other night, he didn't seem to notice me at first. Not until I got closer. Good evening, sir, I said gently. I'm afraid you can't be here. I have to ask you to leave the property. The old man flinched and turned toward me with a sleepy, confused look. Oh. You startled me. I didn't even see you coming. Doesn't matter, the old man mumbled, then added, but could you give me a hand, son? Help me up, would you? He reached out. I took his bony, wrinkled hand. Just like the woman's hand days ago, it was warm and soft, as if it hadn't been sitting in the middle of a damp, cold field. There was something comforting about it. Familiar. He stood up with a groan, rubbing his back, wincing. Let me tell you something, son, the old man said once he straightened up. Trust your instincts. Don't be afraid. You'll be fine. He didn't respond. Just stood there, unmoving. His face completely hidden by the mask. His tuxedo was muddy and stained, like he'd been sleeping in the dirt all day. Sir, I repeated, trying to sound firm, you really need to leave. Now. Dear sir, I tried again, putting on my most courteous tone, please allow me to kindly ask you to leave the premises. I'm afraid you're not permitted to be here. But time was crawling. I checked the clock every few minutes, but it felt like hours. Still over an hour to go. I leaned my head against the steering wheel, eyes heavy again, as the weight of everything slowly dragged me down into exhaustion. I must have dozed off again, because I jolted awake in a panic. Only 20 minutes had passed, but something was off. The headlights were off, even though I'd left them on after the rabbit-masked man left. Dead battery? I flipped the lights off and then back on. They came on instantly. And my heart nearly stopped. The rabbit-masked man was standing a few meters in front of the car. Staring directly at me. But this time, he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman in a long, elegant white evening gown. She wore a black rabbit mask, a mirror to the man's white one. Her face was completely obscured. Only her long, curly blonde hair blew gently in the breeze. I was terrified. How long had they been standing there? What did they want from me? I'd already sent the man away once, why had he come back? Should I try again? I forced myself to move. Took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, but didn't move an inch away from the door. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I pointed it at them. I already asked you to leave once, I said, voice shaky. I have to ask again, please, leave the property. Warning. The rabbit-masked individuals are not supposed to be there. Leave the area immediately. I didn't wait a second longer. I jumped back into the car. That's when I heard the scream. A sound I couldn't place. Like a hawk shrieking as it dives for prey, but sharper. Worse. Then I saw the man in the tuxedo drop to all fours, and charge. Moving far faster than he had before. Like a spider, scuttling with unnatural precision. I slammed my foot on the gas. As I turned the car toward the forest path, the creature caught up. I heard it slam into the vehicle, then the rear window shattered violently. I didn't stop. Didn't look back, the dirt road was rough, but I pushed the car as fast as it would go. Then, a violent jolt. The creature had ripped the rear door clean off. With one pull. I kept driving, bouncing and skidding down the uneven trail. I just wanted out. Then, pain. Excruciating pain in my back. A hand, long, clawed, reached inside, grasping blindly for me. I swerved hard. The car burst from the trees onto the paved road. The bottom scraped and sparked against the asphalt. I floored it. Didn't care about anything else. The hand vanished. And I couldn't hear anything on the roof anymore. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a black pickup truck racing the opposite direction, the same one as always. But I didn't stop. Not even when I noticed blood dripping down my right arm, and my back felt like it was on fire. I drove all the way back. Back to the train station. The fat man was there, waiting for me. But he wasn't smiling this time. He looked exhausted. It was nearly 4 a.m., and the parking lot was empty except for him. His eyes widened when he saw the car. The back door was missing. The vehicle torn up with deep gashes and scratches. I stepped out, pale and shaking. My uniform soaked in blood. A deep slash on my shoulder still leaking steadily. "I'll take you to a doctor, son," the fat man said quietly. For a few days, I stayed locked inside my room. I didn't want to go out, I was looking for a job. I didn't want to work for the company again. The money was good, sure, but my life was more important. A few weeks later, my wounds were healing, and I found a job. The company messaged me twice, offering open shifts. I never replied. It was better that way. I worked at a 24-hour convenience store in a miserable part of town. The job sucked. My boss was a complete asshole, always yelling at everyone like we were dirt under his shoes. The pay was awful, barely enough to cover the bills. I was slowly burning through the money the company had given me. Most of my shifts were at night, and the only customers were drunk people, homeless folks, or shady weirdos buying God knows what. One night I stood behind the register, watching a staggering homeless man dig through the alcohol shelf. I glanced outside. The streets were dark and empty, lit only by the flickering streetlights. And then I saw him. The man in the rabbit mask. Still wearing his filthy, muddy tuxedo, he stood there on the other side of the glass, waving at me, beckoning me to come. I broke out in a cold sweat. I panicked. I wanted to run. I looked around, searching for a way out. But the figure outside was gone. Did I imagine it? Then my phone buzzed again. Another open shift. I looked around the store. The homeless guy was still shuffling through the vodka, and everything else was still, bright, and dull. As much as I was terrified, deep down, I felt it. Something in me longed to go back. Not just for the money. The place was calling me. Maybe should I go back?
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
Just for the hell of it, I made them wait while I grabbed coffee and got dressed. Hell, the driver is probably getting paid by the hour, they should thank me. It's not like collective higher-ups are going to give a damn if I'm a few minutes late anyway, right? Not to mention it's 3 in the damn morning, so my restful sleep and nice dream got interrupted. I at least need some coffee as compensation. The driver didn't say anything to me as I got into the car, just started driving me towards downtown. I sipped my coffee as we went, curious about what kind of fresh hell the collective was calling me in for at this hour. Think I'm going to demand some vacation time after this, no matter how small time the job may be. I've earned it, damn it. Especially after all that I've done with the Cognizant program and closing up these damn dimensional tiers. God, please don't let this be another tier. A reality aberration that's come through to our world, that I can deal with. A whole tier in the fabric of reality though, I've only got so many of those left in me before they take me out for good. Hopefully they at least give me a good team for this one if that's the case. Scanning over the file, I started to put together what he was talking about. Arctic Research Base, studies in occult powers that open a tier between dimensions. Jesus, the Nazis. Been a while since I've seen these bastards involved in anything. How the hell was a Nazi base still holding out in 2025? I asked, looking up at him. You're fucking with me. I'm hunting down Hitler. I asked, looking up at him from the files. Oh, come on. I said, pushing the file away and rubbing my eyes. It was way too early in the morning for shit like this. So this isn't just a tier we're dealing with but a straight-up hellscape. Yes, and it's spreading. The longer the portal is open, the more ground it starts to cover. Currently it's infected a 5-mile radius from the base. Thankfully they put the damn thing in the Arctic instead of somewhere on their home turf at the time. He replied. Quite literally, yes. He responded. You'll be going in with a 3-person team. One occult specialist, Vera, will be able to close the portal through a ritual. The other 2, Pitt and Marcus, will be your muscle and demo experts. I've also given approval for the defector to go with you as a guide. Her name is Celine. Quite a nice woman, surprisingly, said she always wanted to get out of the cult but had no way to escape until now. Watch out that she doesn't double-cross you. Got the essentials? I asked. She just nodded in response, tossing me a jar of clear liquid. Nazis, a hell gate, the frozen tundra of the Arctic. I've played Wolfenstein before, we'll be alright. I sighed. She just chuckled. Look, if we run into Mecha Hitler then I'll worry. I joked, half flirting with her. I tried to stay away from interwork relationships but she was, wow. Not much else to say there. Her smile was dazzling. Think you two can wait to fuck after the mission is over? Pitt shouted across the room. I flipped a middle finger at him as Vera just laughed, turning back to her work. In her tack bag I saw the usual arsenal for fighting off the unholy, holy water, a couple of crosses, and quite a few old, dusty books with strange runes on the front. Likely Aramaic, used for casting the rituals to close the portals. Or open them, if that's something one was stupid enough to try. Where's the defector? I asked, looking around now. My question was answered almost immediately. She was sitting next to one of the far walls, staring straight ahead as if there was nothing going on around her. Poor woman had that vacant, 1,000-yard stare that I've seen so many times on these missions after something bad has happened. Jesus, she looks rough. Yeah, she's been through some shit. Vera replied. So, you were a Nazi? Marcus asked Celine almost point blank, breaking the silence as we flew. Pitt let out a laugh as Vera just groaned. Hell yeah, I'll drink to that. Marcus said, raising a small flask. Vera smacked it from his hand, spilling an unknown spirit all over the floor. Hey, that was my only one. You're about to go on a very dangerous mission where all of us are risking our lives. You can handle being sober until we make it back alive. Jesus, Vera scolded him, making him turn bright red under the bushy beard. She turned back to Celine. What made you want to get out? I grew up hearing all about the glory of the Reich, being told that we were the ones who were going to restore power to this world. She started, sitting forward with a sigh. Do you have any idea what it's like growing up and never seeing the sun? It's cold up there. We were told we could never go outside, never let the corruption of the world in. We were told we had to stay pure for the day the Führer returned. When I was 20 I was chosen. I was one of the ones who would keep the Führer's legacy alive, even after he had been gone for decades. Through some of our scientists, I was given a child, a beautiful daughter I named Anneliese. She was strong, beautiful. I raised her to be kind and caring to those around her. She was the only warmth I ever felt in that cold compound. So long as she was near me, the light of 1,000 suns paled in comparison. Then they took her from me. She said, eyes going cold as small tears began to form in the corners. These bastards. They held me back as I screamed and clawed at them to let me go, let me take her from there. I saw them lead her into a circle with the other children and slit her throat, spilling blood onto the gateway. They traded her life for power, without ever thinking that she could be destined for greater things. Estimated arrival in 5 hours. A voice came over the plane comms. Holy shit, look at that. I could hear Pitt shouting as the plane went through turbulence, shocking me awake in my seat. I rubbed sleep from my eyes, shaking my head as the weight of exhaustion tried to close them again. Pitt shouted again, Harker, seriously. Come over here and look. Yeah, on my way, I said, getting to my feet and desperately trying to stay steady as the plane lurched to one side. Oh hell, it's coming at us. Marcus shouted, diving past me back to his seat. A massive creature was flying right beside our plane, at least half the size of the cargo jet we were on. It was, well, I don't think there was any way it was friendly. Long, leathery wings, held it aloft, flapping in the cold air. Its head was vaguely human, with a pointed, reptilian snout that ended in slits. A jaw full of sharp teeth was set under, but the biggest thing that stood out was twofold eyes that looked like they were at the same time black as soot and blazing with fire. Atop its head were massive, curling horns that looked like they could easily gore through a horse and keep going if it chose to. I swear it looked directly at me before diving at the plane again, side-swiping it with a massive, humanoid hand that ended in sharp claws. We could hear metal tear as it breached the hull, sending the plane careening off in the other direction for a moment. Sounds of wind mixed with the alarm as we spun faster and faster. One of the others, I think Pitt, started making retching noises as we went down, spewing up whatever little food he had in his stomach alongside the alcohol. I held on tight, trying to ensure my body wasn't too tense because it would only make the impact even worse when we finally hit the ground. Alright, we're coming in hot. I'm going to give them a little surprise though. I can see the base, the pilot said over the comms before another ungodly sound of metal tearing interrupted him. The plane pulled to one side, leveling out for a brief second before we could feel ourselves drop through the air once more. Just for a moment, there was peace. The next moment we were all jolted by the impact as the plane hit the ground, throwing debris everywhere. My warning didn't come nearly fast enough. Before we knew it, the pilot was gone, spirited into the air while sharp claws dug into him. The demon was carrying him in the lower claws where its feet were, and when it got up to a decent height above us, it made sure we knew what our fate would be if it got claws on us too. The damn thing grabbed the pilot by both feet, taking one in each hand, and pulled apart like he was a fucking wishbone, tearing him clean in half down the middle. Blood rained down, steaming in the cold Arctic air before painting the icy tundra below in a terrible splatter. Hell with this. I made my way to the door, giving it a few good kicks to break the ice loose on the mechanism before it burst inward, warm air rushing out to meet us as the demon began to dive back down in our direction. We all ran in, throwing the doors closed behind us just as the demon crashed into them, almost coming right through if not for its enormous size.
You're still tuned to Horror Slop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
I spent most of yesterday reorganizing my bathroom. I wasn't planning on it. I just went in to grab some floss and ended up on the floor, knee-deep in plastic bins and expired products. I think we all have that one drawer or cabinet. The one where things go to die. Mine happens to be where I've been storing almost a decade of backup skincare, hair tools, and half-used personal hygiene products. At first it was oddly satisfying. Tossing dried-up mascaras. Grouping razors together in a little tray. Lining up my backup moisturizers like soldiers. I felt like I was reclaiming space. Taking inventory of my life. That was fine. Maybe I had a weird thing where I open stuff, forget, and open a new one. I tried to ignore it. I rubbed labels until the ink came off. Snapped open bottles just to make sure they were empty. I was being ruthless. No more stockpiling. No more keeping things, just in case. I told myself I couldn't bring anything new into this place until I made space for it. Real space. Not just in drawers. In me. I think that's when it started. I began to feel like I was downsizing more than my bathroom. Every cotton swab, every crusted cap, every crumbling face mask, I threw it away like I was pruning a part of my body. Not metaphorically. It felt physical. Like I was rubbing off my own edges to make myself smaller. And it wasn't just trash. It was my skin cells. My hair. Dried saliva on floss. My scent, preserved in lotions. My fingertips, pressed into caps and jars and tubes for years. It hit me that our DNA is everywhere. Much longer than it should have been. Then I found a box. Inside the box was a sealed bag. Inside the bag was trash. Used floss picks. Cotton pads soaked in micellar water. Q-tips with black smudges on the ends. Bits of hair. A contact lens. A band-aid. All of it mine. But I never saved this. I never bagged it. I never put it away. I sat on the floor for a long time. I didn't move. I just stared at the bag and started breathing slower. Something wasn't right. I looked up and caught my reflection in the mirror. Nothing wrong. Just me. But when I tilted my head, it didn't move right away. Like there was a lag. A delay in the glass. I didn't sleep last night. Not taken to the curb. Not moved to the hallway. Just, gone. I don't remember doing that. I don't know what I threw away.
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse. In the best way.
Fran and Jock, by Pippinacious. My mom's father died when I was 4. A few days after his funeral, I was given a white teddy bear with bright blue eyes that twinkled from beneath a plaid flat cap and a green sweater. When I gave it a squeeze, I heard my grandpa's slightly muffled voice from its stomach. I love you, Sadie. I named my white bear Fran and my gray bear Jock and put them on a shelf above my bed, where they sat throughout my childhood. Honestly, I didn't give them much thought. They had become fixtures of my room, the same way the lamp and dresser were. Every now and again, I'd come home from school to find one of my parents standing beside my bed, looking up at the bears or giving them a little squeeze. Even as time passed, they still recited their single phrase without fail. When I went away to college, the two didn't make the cut and were left behind while I made my way out into the world for the first time. I think my parents were a little disappointed that I wasn't more sentimental over the teddies, but any memories I had of my grandpas were hazy at best and I didn't have the same emotional connection that they did. When Mom gently asked about whether I would like them when I moved into my first apartment, I told her no, that they were probably better off with her. I was pretty confident I wouldn't. The next time I went back to my parents' place was to house sit while Dad took Mom on their long-awaited vacation out west. He'd been promising her they'd go for over 30 years and they were both buzzing with excitement. In typical Mom fashion, however, she was also very nervous. You remember where all the financial documents are in case anything happens to us, right? She asked from the back seat at least 6 times on the drive to the airport. I think she's got it, Han, Dad said, reaching back to give her knee a squeeze. Mom harumphed and sat back. Just call if you need anything. I'll be fine, don't worry. You're only going for a week. A lot can happen in a week, she said. I grinned at her in the rearview mirror, unconcerned, and she made a face at me, but seemed to relax. After I dropped them off, I drove back to their place and started to make myself at home again. I tossed my suitcase on my bed and went to the kitchen to make some dinner and catch up on one of my shows. It had been a while since I'd had a true, completely free week all to myself and I planned to take full advantage of it. After I ate, I kicked up my feet, stretched out, and commenced lazy lump mode. I managed to get almost 3 episodes in before I started to nod off. I checked the clock over the TV inside. It was only just after 11, was I really turning into an old, early-to-bed woman already? The horror. I rolled off the couch and shut off the TV and all the lights, plunging the house into a deep darkness. Whatever the reason, I appreciated the familiarity. As I started to unpack my bag, my eye was drawn to the shelf over my bed. Fran and Jock, ever vigilant, were sitting in the same spots they'd occupied for most of my life. I don't know why, but I couldn't help but smile and reach out to them. I love you, Sadie. Grandpa said. After putting Fran back, I did the same to Jock, who stared up at me with his usual sternness even as I plucked one red suspender. It was the first time I'd listened to them in a while. Even if they didn't resonate as deeply with me as they did my parents, I was glad to find their recording still worked. Get out. I stared down at the bear and blinked once, very slowly. I must be more sleepy than I realized, I thought. I was hearing things. To prove to myself that it had just been my imagination, I squeezed him again. Get out. Get out. Get out. Grandpa's voice came from Fran again, louder this time. Get out. Grandpa echoed from Jock. I know you're down there. Jock shouted with Grandpop's voice. Get out. Fran roared. They weren't yelling at me at all, I realized with a very strange mix of confusing relief and newly formed horror. They were yelling at the intruder who was making their way up the stairs, towards me. A heavy quiet had fallen over the house again. After waiting a few, long, tense minutes, I crept back across the hall and peeked into my room. Fran and Jock were where I'd left them, both completely silent. When they stayed that way, I hesitantly approached Fran, who was lying on his side with his little flat cap beside him. I picked him up and, with trembling fingers, squeezed his stomach. I put his cap back on his head and gently put him back on the shelf beside Jock and backed out of the room, watching them the whole time with wide eyes. As I rounded the corner, heading downstairs to the phone, I heard Grandpop's voice trailing after me. I love you, Sadie. It took a few more go-arounds, but I eventually convinced them I was safe.
That last one tasted like fear and poor decisions. Let's see what the next bite stirs. Hope you're hungry.
My family was cracking under the weight, and the final straw was when one morning, our mailbox was overflowing with letters, ranging from supposed ransom notes claiming to be Bianca's captor and asking for thousands of dollars, to sexual fantasies that churned my stomach to even recall. This girl, who would braid my hair by the pool before pushing me in and buying me liquor with her fake ID for sleepovers, was not only gone but being smeared into fodder of every form. Even if we shut our doors and boarded our windows, it invaded every crevice of our lives as the police search drew longer and closer to failure. Through thunderous screaming matches, we finally reached an agreement. I was financially stable and old enough to live in the house, but my parents couldn't bear to live in the same state anymore, mind that home. A month later, there were now 2 empty bedrooms, and every hall had never been quieter, yet my brain had never been louder. While my parents moved on in Florida, I rotted in Massachusetts, obsessed with my sister's case and the undeniable nonsense of it. Most of the info I'd obtained about the case wasn't even from the police, but from the forums of the same people who were besmirching her and our family's name. What could have possibly happened in 3 minutes? What is someone capable of in that time? Toward the end of the footage, as the bar empties, the trio containing Theo, Craig, and his girlfriend Kiera huddle at a table. Their conversation is unintelligible, as the footage is void of audio, but their expressions appeared serious and afraid, as if something was looming over their shoulders. Remembering was permanently etched above her Instagram handle, a digital gravestone. It was always surreal to see. Through her profile, I navigated to Kiera's, which only had 2 old photos of her, with every picture of her and Bianca wiped away. I could understand how the pressure of all the attention got to them. It tore my family apart, but how could anyone just act like she never existed? Like she didn't matter, and still does? In my internet perusing, I finally pried into Theo, who, prior to their trip in 2023, had no further online presence. No social media accounts, no work profiles, no criminal record, no obituary, nothing. I even dumped a White Pages subscription onto a credit card, only to be met with 54-year-old men in Kansas who had the same name. He could have been out of the country for all I knew. But who runs so far unless something's chasing them? Is this some kind of AI or deepfake? I don't have the funds to subscribe, but it sure looks like her. I expanded the post, and the thumbnail of an attached OnlyFans link filled my screen. The closest I could describe the feeling of seeing the girl was uncanny valley. It was Bianca, every thread of her blue eyes, every acne scar from high school, her 2 bottom front teeth curving in when she smiled. It was her. She hated anything neon, said it made you look like a Sharpie. And she was about as athletic as a sloth. Is this some kind of sick joke? Professional exercise instructor. Videos include yoga, weightlifting, Pilates, and more. Until the 21st, get 33% off a 3-month subscription. Did she run off? Start a new life? The mouse hovering over the play button, my fingers trembled against the trackpad. This could all just be one big coincidence. Grief does weird things to the brain. Hey, guys, gals, and all kinds of pals. Welcome back to another week of Bend with Bianca. Hope you guys enjoyed, learned something new, or improved on what you already knew. See you next time. Certified girl here, that is definitely not a wig, unless her lace is invisible. While formatting an email to a colleague, my computer chirped with a Reddit notification. Instantly sidelining my work task, I navigated to the subreddit to check out the new post. New Bianca of video. I guess she's rebranding. The link attached displayed an up-close photo of Bianca, her chin tipped downward as she stared piercingly into the camera with a foam mic at her lips. Her hair was raven black and slicked into a tight ponytail. The room was dim, except for two warm, multicolored lamps that paralleled both sides of her. When I clicked the link, it led me to a new account, at Bianca Bedtime ASMR. Can't sleep? Bad insomnia? Come unwind with me. What the? Do you have an appointment with us today? She enunciated the word, hissing delicately into the mic. For 4 minutes of the 26-minute video, this persisted, till she suddenly dropped her hand with a frustrated heft. One moment. I could just edit this out. With a squelchy crunch, she pierced her nails into her gum line, blood oozing as she attempted to hook into the tooth. My eyes bulged but remained attentive as I watched her nonchalantly shimmy the tooth out of its socket. Once it was out, it dangled from stringy flesh and nerve endings, blood pooling around her tongue. Even rhetorically, the question felt redundant: who wouldn't? I'd seen grown adults crisscross applesauce on sofas with a steaming mat chai in hand, gleefully recalling my sister's case as if it were a campfire story. All to cap it off with an advertisement for BetterHelp, pockets full of fucking blood money. And I just provided $50 to their demented fantasy. After emptying my guts till my vision grew fuzzy, I sobbed against the cold tile. Nothing was worse than being overwhelmed with so much pain that you shrink back to a child again. I just wanted my mommy and daddy, except neither of them wanted to hear me ring the phone. I didn't want my computer, I didn't want my phone. They call it the World Wide Web, not because it's connected, but because it's full of venomous spiders, especially ones with microphones that label themselves journalists. For hours, I stared till my eyes dried and grew bloodshot like crimson lightning.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
I found an obscure forum thread about the skinned man. I wish I hadn't clicked it, by Pennyworth 223. I should have closed the tab. I should have shut my laptop, gone to bed, and let the unease settle somewhere deep and forgotten. But like most bad decisions, it started with a rabbit hole I wasn't supposed to find. It was 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday. I was 6 pages deep on an obscure forum called the Hollow Index. Black background, lime green text. No ads. No mods. I wasn't even sure how I'd gotten there. The last thing I remember searching was, Appalachian folklore missing people. No username. Just a string of numbers for a handle, like someone punched a keyboard and hit send. I clicked. He mimics people you love. He speaks in their voices, but his eyes never blink. If you answer the door after midnight, it won't be your family standing there. Don't speak to it. That's how it learns your voice. If it takes your skin, you don't die. You just watch. That was posted 2 months ago. It didn't. The next night, I heard scratching. Nothing. No tracks. No wind. Not even bugs. He's listening. Calling from downstairs. She died in 2018. I whispered back, "You're not her." When I turned, the doorknob twitched. I didn't sleep that night. I tried to go back to the site. It was gone. 404. It was around that time I started seeing him. Not clearly. Not directly. That's when I saw the figure. It stepped out from behind a tree, only halfway. Just enough for the camera to catch the right side of its face. No eyelid. No blink. Its skin looked like it had been stitched on. Too pale. Uneven. Its eye, one single, milky white orb, stared at the camera for 13 minutes. When I went to check the camera the next morning, the lens had been gouged out. I started digging into the coordinates I saw on the forum. Most of them led nowhere. One led to a collapsed coal mine in West Virginia. Another to a dead-end trail near an old asylum. But one of them led to a town in Pennsylvania I'd never heard of. Population, 0. I checked satellite images. The town had burned down in the 80s after a fire spread from a nearby landfill. A few buildings remained, but it had been abandoned ever since. Except, the coordinates pointed to a house still standing. I couldn't explain why, but I knew that place mattered. I told myself I wasn't going to go. It was a photo of me, standing at my bedroom window. You're almost ready. The drive to Cinder Hollow took 3 hours. The last stretch was all dirt road, pitted and barely passable. When I finally reached the clearing, I saw it, the house from the satellite photo. More rot than wood, sagging under its own weight. But it was still there. I parked and stepped out, every instinct in my body screaming to leave. The air smelled wrong. Sweet and metallic, like rusted pennies and wet leaves. The ground was soft, spongy, almost like walking on something rotten. I approached the front door, which hung slightly open. I found a staircase. And beneath it, a door. The steps were slick with moisture. Moss crawled along the walls. And at the bottom was a well. That's when I heard it. My mother's voice. Then my father's. Then my own. The air changed. Cold. Dense. And then I saw him. The skinned man. No eyes. No mouth. Not my voice. My breath. My screams. But there were handprints on my rear window. Sometimes it's my mother. Sometimes it's me. They don't blink. But I need you to believe me. If you find that forum, if you see that thread, don't answer the door. Don't go looking. And whatever you do, don't trust the voice of someone who doesn't blink.
Anyway, let's lighten the mood with something fun and... Nah, just kidding. It gets worse. Hit it.
30 hours ago I hopped on a late-night flight from New York heading to Los Angeles. After boarding I saw that I had an entire row to myself. Takeoff passed without incident, and soon I was stretched out for a nap across the row. I slept for a few hours, I don't know how long, but I woke up to some severe turbulence. It's possible that the lights in the cabin went out for a moment, but I was so disoriented that it's hard to say. I checked my phone to see that it was 4:03 a.m., which I figured gave me about an hour until we landed. When I looked out my window, I was shocked to see nothing but wide open ocean. My jaw dropped. There's obviously no ocean between New York and Los Angeles. "How can I help you, sir?" she asked. I froze for a moment at her reaction before deciding to just ask my question. "Where are we? Why does it look like we're flying over an ocean?" She wiped her cheeks to clear the tears, still grinning wildly. "Sir, we'll be landing in about an hour." After she left, I checked the clock on my phone again. 4:03 a.m. blinked back at me. I opened up my laptop and saw it too, displayed 4:03 a.m. I pulled out my phone, started a stopwatch in the app, and spent the next 2 hours looking back and forth between the clocks, waiting for them to change. They never did. "Do you know how long until we land?" I asked. I shook my head in confusion. That flight attendant? We talked almost 2 hours ago. We should have landed already. I told him that wouldn't be necessary and sat back. He removed his hand and stepped away. I've explored all of coach and tried talking to some of the other passengers, but they've all told me that they're expecting to land in an hour or so. Around 3 hours ago I tried getting into first class. I made it past the curtain but was escorted back by 2 grinning flight attendants. Their grip on my arms were like iron. "Sir, the seatbelt sign is on," one said. "Please remain in your seat with your buckle fastened. We'll be landing in about an hour." I'd just about given up hope when a woman came down the aisle dressed in a business suit. She didn't look at me or slow down, but she dropped a piece of paper onto my tray as she made her way to the bathrooms at the back of the plane. It's been 20 minutes since then. I don't know why, but I don't think the flight attendants would like it if they knew we were talking. It doesn't matter. I have to do something. I'll update you all with whatever happens next. /r/Worcester Street.
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back out now. Next story's already watching.
What you're about to read is something I never thought I'd share with anyone, but I do feel like the time is right for me to get it out there and let people know what I went through and experienced. Also, let's go ahead and get this out of the way now. I'm not proud of who I was in the past, so what led me to prison and who I am will remain my own dirty secret. I do want to warn you as the reader though that what you're about to read can be hard for some people. What I learned in prison is that in a place built for the scariest people you can think of, the scariest thing of all is the human mind. I guess there's a reason why the worst punishment you can receive in prison is being locked in a room all by yourself. Crazy to think about, isn't it? You're walking around all day wondering if it's the day you're gonna get poked in the yard or if you're gonna get attacked in the shower. The amount of blood I seen shed in that prison would make most people's stomach turn. The amount of sexual assaults on top of that is enough to scare any sane human away from ever even committing a crime, but in a place with all of that, the ultimate punishment is solitary confinement, total isolation. I smuggled a journal and a pencil into solitary with me, and that is what you're about to read. Maybe by the end, it'll all start to make more sense why solitary is the ultimate punishment in prison and why I believe it's the cruelest fucking thing we could ever do to another human being. Not much to report. They slide meals under the door. No window. Just the little slot. I'm rationing my thoughts. Keeping things neat. Organized. Working through old memories like boxes in the attic. I recited the names of all 50 states today. Twice. I remember this game my dad used to play with me in the car. I can still hear his voice in my head. Who sings this? What's the name of this song? It was a good memory exercise, probably why I'm so good at remembering shit. Day 3. Hard to tell what time it is. The light overhead buzzes in a constant hum, always on. No clock. No sun. I've been doing push-ups and sit-ups. I count everything. Breaths, bites, steps. It's so fucking boring in here, but it is what it is. I've heard stories of people breaking in here, but mama didn't raise no bitch. Day 4. Day 5. Day 6. I heard footsteps outside the cell, but no one came. They echoed too long, like someone pacing right outside the door. When I called out, it stopped. Weird shit, but what's new? This whole fucking place is weird. I'm not sure what's happening anymore honestly, the days and nights are all the same at this point. Day 8. I tried to sleep but kept waking up every few minutes. My dreams are starting to feel real. Last night I woke up swearing someone whispered my name. But there's no one here. Duh. I'm just gonna work out and try to tire myself out, maybe then I can get myself to sleep. I started scratching tally marks into the wall with the edge of my meal tray. I think I counted 9, but I might have missed one. I can't concentrate. Everything feels loose. Frayed. I'm trying not to lose it, but I'm also starting to understand why everyone seems to when they're in here. I'm starting to see shadows on the wall. Reminds me of being up for days on meth, the fucking shadow people. I'm aware of what's going on, I haven't lost my mind yet. I know what I'm seeing isn't real. It's all in my head, I just have to be strong enough to get through this shit. Day 12. No food today. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it hasn't even been time for food yet. All I can feel is the echo of hunger. What I wouldn't give for some of my mom's cooking. I'm not sure what time it is, I wish they'd put a fucking clock in here or something. I'm losing my mind. Days and nights are one and the same. I'm so tired. At least these fake-ass shadow people are keeping me busy. Day 16. I remembered a dog I had when I was 8. Her name was Penny. Brown fur, floppy ears, smelled like dirt and popcorn. I haven't thought about her in years. I swear I felt her curl up beside me last night. Warm, comforting. I almost cried again. I don't know what's real anymore. I just want to get out of here. The walls are caving in, the silence is deafening and the darkness is haunting. Day 18. I chewed through part of my fingernail without realizing it. It bled more than I expected. Honestly feels good to even feel something, a reminder I'm still alive, that I'm still human. Red looks brighter here, almost fake. Like paint. I smeared it on the wall in circles. Don't ask me why. Maybe I wanted to see something new. Maybe I wanted a sign. Frank said it was a portal. Linda said I should sleep. I think Linda is right again. I heard someone singing. A woman's voice, soft and sad, like a lullaby underwater. It was coming from the vent. I pressed my ear against it for hours. I don't know if I actually heard it or if my brain just needed music. Either way, I felt peace. The first peace in a long time. I hope she sings again. Day 20. My body is starting to feel separate from me. Like I'm driving a machine I don't fully understand. I watch my hands move and I wonder who they belong to. There's dirt under my nails. The crack in the wall looks deeper now. I can see my skin move, bubble, like something is inside of me trying to get out. I think for the first time in my life I can say I'm truly scared. The tray slot opened and I screamed. Just reflex. I wasn't expecting it. The food looked off. I swear it moved. I didn't eat it. I couldn't. I buried it under my blanket like a corpse. Maybe tomorrow it'll look more edible. Maybe tomorrow I'll be someone else. There's a part of me that keeps telling myself none of this is real, but it's the only thing that is real at this point. Day 24. I tried talking to the guards through the door today. No one answered. I asked for the time. I asked for the date. I begged. Nothing. Not even a shadow in the slot. Just me, my thoughts, and whatever else is hiding in here. This cell is a coffin that forgot to be buried. Day 25. There was a knock tonight. 4 soft knocks. Then silence. Then 4 again. Morse code maybe. I don't remember Morse code. I knocked back 4 times and then something scraped across the floor outside. I pressed my face to the crack. Nothing. Just black. Just forever. There's gotta be someone out there, right? Day 26. I woke up to warmth. Not the cell. Me. Like something inside me was glowing. I looked at my hands, they were shaking, vibrating. I laughed. I laughed so hard I fell over. The crack in the wall is wide now. I can see something through it. Maybe light. Maybe fire. Maybe nothing. Maybe the door Frank was talking about. I think I'm ready. I think I have to be. I peeled a scab off just to feel something real. The pain was dull. Not sharp like it should have been. My nerves are dying, or maybe I already did. I asked Linda if I was dead. She said yes. Frank said not yet. They both laughed after. It echoed too long. Too loud. I screamed at the wall until my throat went raw. I bit my hand today. I wanted to see if I'd bleed red or black. It was red. For now. Still human. There are things in the dark when I close my eyes, faces I don't remember but who remember me. One whispered, "I forgave you." Another whispered, "I never will." I don't even know what they're talking about. Day 33. The wall is bleeding. No one believes me. I touched it. It was warm. Metallic. It pulsed like a heartbeat. I laughed and told it, "We're the same now." I don't sleep anymore. I think sleep's a trick, a trap to make you let your guard down. I stay awake to keep them out. Day 38. Day 39. Day 40. Day 41. I almost stopped writing because I thought it was making me worse, but not writing is worse. The silence fills in the cracks. Becomes a scream. This journal is my last thread, my last grip to my sanity. I think if I stop, I'll dissolve. Just become part of the room. Just another echo scratching behind someone else's walls. I think I just wrote nonsense the day prior. I'm surprised I wrote anything at all. Today though. I saw light under the door. Real light. Not the buzzing fake shit. Warm, yellow, sunlight. I cried. Got on my knees and begged the crack to open wider. It vanished. Cruel fucking joke. I think this place shows you hope right before it eats you. That way you scream sweeter. Scream sweeter. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. I'm losing it, but damn, I just made myself laugh so fucking hard. Day 44. Day 45. Just like that. No warning. No announcement. The light from the hallway burned my eyes. I covered my face and begged them to shut it. One guard said, "You're being released." I laughed. I cried. They handed me a bag of clothes and a paper to sign. I don't remember signing it. I don't remember walking out. I just remember the sun. Still waiting for the next meal slot to open. Still talking to shadows. Prisoner number 37,426. I still sleep on the floor from time to time. Sometimes. I wish I was. Weird, right? No one told me how loud the world is. Colors are too bright. People talk too fast. Every noise feels like a slap. I just wanted the silence back, well not really. I'm being silly. That shit was scary, the real world just doesn't feel less scary at times. I've tried to reconnect with people, but I see it in their eyes, they don't know how to talk to me. They ask shallow questions. Offer me pity. They don't understand what solitary does. It doesn't just keep you alone. It makes you alone. Even when you're with others. I asked a counselor if I could go back in. Not for long. Just a few hours. She looked at me like I was diseased, sick, wrong. They don't get it. Solitary strips you down. Burns off the layers. What's left isn't always something that can walk back into the world and function. It's something feral. Something altered. Something haunted. I was always told prison was about rehabilitation and that they wanted people to be productive members of society, but how do you become an active and productive member of society when all your rights are stripped away and you're stuck in a room by yourself for 45 days with nothing but your mind to keep you company? I get released from my own personal hell and get a swift kick in the ass into the real world and I'm just supposed to function. Unfucking believable if you ask me. Because they stayed. They were the only ones who stayed. I feel safe. Then scared. Then back to reality. I know I'm not okay. I don't know if I'll ever be okay.
Whew, telling gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
I used to think that I'd one day get the opportunity to travel throughout the universe in an epic, sci-fi spaceship, like in the movies. I would imagine myself wearing a decked-out spacesuit, with a laser blaster at my hip, chasing after enemy alien ships. To be a kid is to be irrationally hopeful. Like everyone else, I eventually learned that the universe, let alone our Milky Way galaxy, is simply far too vast for humans to ever plausibly hope to traverse. A bit of a letdown, but I came to terms with that fact a long time ago. I usually do a few things around my apartment after coming home from work: dishes, laundry, basic stuff. Not last night. I was feeling a bit under the weather, so I went straight to bed. In an attempt to get a better view, I tried backing up a bit and instead watched as my astral body launched straight out of the atmosphere. It was astoundingly effortless. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was witnessing planet Earth in all its glory as the sun enveloped it in its powerful ultraviolet rays. That's another thing, I could see the rays too. I fell through Jupiter, through the eye of its giant storm, through its semi-solid core as well. I flew alongside comets, danced around Saturn's asteroid belt, and watched in awe as a distant star collapsed into a black hole. I don't know how long I was out there for. A few minutes. A few hours. I must have gotten carried away, strayed too far from the sun, so to speak. I guess it's not as vast as I thought. I wasn't sure what I would find here. There wasn't much to look at, a whole lot of nothing actually. I figured it was time to wrap up the fun. I stared hesitantly at the doorway, uncertain of what lay beyond it. I have to take a peek. How could I not? As I approached the doorway, I closely observed the way space and time seemed to ripple out from it. Strings of light and energy spewed from it like spaghetti. I guess it's a good thing I left my body back home. It was my bedroom, except, it wasn't. I got up to go wash my face, but something felt off, as if my body wasn't mine. Looking into the bathroom mirror, I saw myself. Staring back at me from the mirror was undeniably me, but roughly 20 pounds heavier, unshaven, and in place of my usual mid-length brown hair, laid a mop of oily black hair that reached past my neck. I don't have a Reddit account, but this me does. I'm using his account to upload my story in hopes that one of you will have some advice as to how I can get back home to my world.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
Yorfasiorpern.mov, by Max Voynich. Yorfasiorpern.mov. My wife tells me she's cheating on me about halfway through dinner. Who? That doesn't matter. I'm working on the last of the chicken at this point, wondering if she's ever fucked both of us in the same day. Is he better? What? She purses her lips. I think she's going to tell me that he's just different, that she's sorry it had to be like this and that she still loves me, really, deep down, that it was a mistake and no one could be better than me, but instead she replies. Sleep on the couch, Michael. Yorfasiorpern. Do you want to live out your most disgusting, most depraved fantasies? Do you want to see yourself do it? Take control of your life. Be the best version of yourself you can be. This is your face, your porn, your reality. I'm in a fuck it sort of mood, more than a little drunk, and I think that this might be the best way to get back at her. I don't even have to leave the comfort of my home, and I can see what I'd look like doing whatever I want. All those things I never told her, the things she'd never do, I can see it. They'll superimpose my face, convincingly into any situation, and I'll watch myself carry out my darkest, deepest desires. Surprise me. Not long after, I pass out. I awake to a vicious hangover, and a notification on my phone. An email containing the first video. Yorfasiorpurchase.mov. It's really me. Or at least, it looks exactly like me. It's night, and fake me seems to be followed by a camera. Fake me spends the evening going into various shops around town and buying tape, and an apple from each store. He seems to make the cashiers nervous, and one girl even starts shaking whilst she tries to find the code for the tape when it won't scan. He is impatient, raps his knuckles on the desk, calls her a bitch under his breath as he leaves. That's it. I try to click forward, to see if there's anything else, but that's it. I watched the whole thing expecting it to be the build-up to something, but no, instead, all I see is something that looks exactly like me drive around town and buy apples and tape. I try to see if I can find the website again to cancel my subscription, but I can't find anything. I try and look through my history, but it's not there. In fact, there's just an empty gap between 1 and 3 a.m. And number X200B. Yorfasiorgums.mov. Close-up of his mouth, there is a thick, black hair protruding from his gum, just above his teeth, and he is trying to wiggle it loose. It isn't working. Until it does, and he pulls out a knot of tangled hairs from the pink of his gum, and they keep coming and coming and coming until there's nearly a foot of hair, and with each tug it wobbles his front 2 teeth a little. And number X200B. I don't sleep that well that night. Something about the videos has unsettled me. They're too realistic, and, watching that fake me fiddle with his gums made my mouth hurt. I say nothing to my wife when she comes in, make no effort to tidy the takeaway boxes from the table. She looks at me for a long, long time, as if something is building up inside her, some thought or opinion about me she's always wanted to tell me, and I watch as it almost bursts out her lips, and then, nothing. The notification wakes me up, another video. I try to reply to the address that's sending me these, telling them I want them to stop, but the email bounces back. I have no choice but to watch. And number X200B. The me that can't possibly be me is eating at a new table. But the whole table is covered in trash, dirt, empty cans, pizza boxes, rotting fruit, bones, tiny crawling things, etc., etc. There are flies buzzing aimlessly about. He is shoveling as much as he can in his mouth, coffee grounds spill down his chin and he coughs. He keeps looking to the left of the camera after swallowing. He winces, pulls something from his mouth, a razor. He has bitten a razor. And number X200B. But when I get up to fix myself a drink, I find my wife's car gone, and I know that she's with him, with this guy she's fucking, and I feel a stab of self-loathing that goes so deep it pierces my stomach and makes me retch. Yorfisuringer.mov. And number X200B. I don't know why, but I sort of like this one. The noise of the fruit is so satisfying, so visceral, and there's something triumphant about the way fake me snatches the boiling water and pours it over the man. Fake me is in control. That evening my wife tells me that she doesn't think she ever loved me, not like the way she loves her new man, and that come to think of it I'm not much of a man at all. She says this whilst I try and wipe ketchup from my shirt, but only succeed in getting some on the couch. Fake me walks away from the crowd, right up to the camera. Knocks on my screen a few times with his knuckles. It sounds like glass. He watches through the screen, smiling. His eyes are on me, I'm sure of it. He pushes his face against the camera, against my screen, and stares right at me. He keeps watching me. Wide shot, misses, Tay struggles on the floor. The me that watched me looks through her records, puts one on. It's old and slow and the vinyl crackles as he drags her into the basement. The video continues for half an hour more, until the vinyl has finished and there is just a loop of a faint crackle, and then there are two thuds, a snap, and it ends. And number X200B. I can see someone's car I don't recognize in my driveway. It looks expensive. I go to investigate, but can't find anyone near it, and so I decide to go and check on Mrs. Tay. I stumble down the street in my dressing gown, face covered in patches of stubble, and knock on her door. No one answers. Bill Roberts walks past, and I wave at him. He shakes his head. I can tell he's trying not to react to how I look, trying to be polite. Haven't seen her in a week or so, Michael. A pause. He's finding the right words, I can tell. And number X200B. Yorfisiortrial.mov. At me. And number X200B. I think my wife sneaks him in the back door, her lover, her Casanova. And number X200B. His breathing gets deeper, loostier, he cannot find a way out, so he just watches, cycling through expressions the way I did, convinced that I am asleep. Am I? When I wake up, there is a note from my wife telling me that she's moving in with him for a while. There is a voicemail from work telling me I'm fired, and that there will be no severance pay. I finds a couple of junkies on the outside of town. He shows them a huge stack of cash and they both nod. They have about 6 teeth between them and walk with a pronounced stoop, taking him to an abandoned building on the edge of town. He says, "Go in ahead of me, I'll be right in." They pause for a while, trying to work out what the catch is, why this seemingly average guy would offer all this cash up front, but he hands them both small foil packages and they quickly dash inside. The laptop is positioned behind her back, so I can see the screen and her at once. I remember the contents of Yorfisiorjunkies.mov and start to panic, if that fell into the wrong hands, with no context. What situations? Jesus. Michael, it's just hours and hours and hours of footage of you whispering to the camera. It's just your face. What's fake about that? I can tell she's a little scared, her disgust at me slowly morphing into something uglier, nastier. She takes a couple of steps back, as if seeing me for the first time. Behind her I can see the me that isn't me, the fake me smiling at the camera on screen. The footage is paused, but he's still moving, closer and closer to the camera, his eyes wide and with a rigor mortis smile, a smile as if he's just learned how to control the musculature of his face perfectly, and he's holding a finger to his lips. He's pushing against the glass of the screen, trying to find a weak point, a crack that will allow him to move from his reality into ours. You're sick. And number X200B. Your faciordern.mov. The room is dark. Objects are obscured. In shadow. Something moves behind the window. A curtain rustles. Waiting.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
Amy and I had been almost too careful. We had never so much as looked at one another in my wife's presence, let alone done anything that could have raised suspicion. There was no way she could have known what was going on, even if she had looked through my phone. With a heavy heart, I'd forced myself to delete any incriminating photos Amy sent me after I was done with them, and we had a strict call-only policy. Amy was our latest hire, and aside from being great at her job, she excelled in garnering male attention. Everyone loved her. She was strikingly beautiful and uninhibited to the point where her energy felt almost carnal, sending all morals and restraints out the window. I tried to ignore her at first, even finding excuses to go home early, but eventually, her charming giggle got the better of me too. 4:37 p.m., how much does divorce cost? I flinched as a large drop of blood landed on the keyboard. What the hell? My first instinct was to look up at the ceiling. Nothing. A strong metallic smell made me come to my senses. I brushed my hand against my face. A bright red smudge sat on my palm. I stared at it, alarmed. I'd never gotten nosebleeds before, aside from the time I got hit in the face with a football in high school. My head raised, I scrambled to my feet and made a dash for the bathroom, my hands cupping my throbbing nose. Once I had managed to stop the bleeding and cleaned myself up, I returned to the computer. This was an oddly specific search. I couldn't recall my wife ever being interested in science or biology. I checked the account logged into the browser, just in case. Perhaps this was someone else's history altogether. Or maybe we'd been hacked. What? What was excerebration? Some kind of fancy divorce? I'd never heard of the term in my life. I didn't even hesitate before clicking it, eager to find out what my wife was planning for us. I wish I hadn't. 5:11 p.m., how much temazepam is safe? My skin crawled as I read, but I couldn't look away. I was so immersed that I didn't even hear the front door bang. Hey. I choked, throwing the box of tissues into the drawer. How was? She studied me, as though she wasn't sure whether I was joking or not. I pointed at the browsing history, my index finger shaking visibly in the air. Oh, she waved her hand dismissively, the X something. You probably know better. My blood ran cold. The excerebration. Karen, what did you do? But before she could say anything, a splash of blood landed on the carpet. And then another one. And another. Karen watched me, her skin growing pale. What? Tell me what the fuck you did. She tried to fight me, writhing under my grip, but I held on tight. Blood was streaming into my mouth and down my chin, staining both of our clothes. I stood there quietly, mulling it over, as more pulp splashed onto my stomach. "EW. We need to call you an ambulance." Karen shrieked, trying to pull away. "What the fuck is that?" Her expression made me feel foolish for not remembering. I knew that name. Amy. It sounded so familiar, and yet I couldn't for the life of me put my finger on it. Karen stared at me, her white blouse resembling a massacre, her mouth pressed into a thin line. What's happening to me?" I whispered. She was silent for a moment, but I could see her eyes brimming with tears. "Honey, what if? What if I accidentally hit your hippocampus instead?"
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
Has anyone heard of the left/right game? Part 1, by Neon Tempo. A few points before we start. Firstly, I am not the protagonist of this story. I just went to university with her, and though she went on to become a professional writer, I most certainly did not. She'll be taking over from me further down, but, until then, please forgive my slightly awkward delivery while I give you guys the necessary context. Secondly, I don't know what you will make of the following events, and I'm sure many of you might consider it all some sort of hoax. I wasn't present for any of what transpired in Phoenix, Arizona, but I can vouch for the person who wrote the following logs. She is not, and has never been, a fantasist. Okay, so I once knew a girl called Alice Sharma. She was an undergrad at Edinburgh Uni the same time I was. My educational poison was history, a degree which has greatly benefited my career as a bicycle repairman. Alice Sharma studied journalism, though perhaps studied isn't the word. It's not an exaggeration to say that she lived and breathed the subject. Editor-in-chief of the campus paper, recognizable voice of student radio. She was frustratingly tunnel-visioned, and she was a journalist in her own right before anyone gave her a professional shot. We met in student halls and became friends almost immediately. A meandering waster trying to stay off his parents' farm and an intrepid, ambitious reporter may not seem the most obvious pairing, but I learned not to question it. She was inspiring, and smart, and she proofread all my essays. I'm not too sure what she saw in me. We were eventually flatmates down in London, where she chased her dream and I chased my tail. She got a few jobs here and there, but nothing befitting of her skills. After months of fruitless internships and rejections, Alice called a flat meeting, telling us that she was moving to America, accepting a position chasing stories for National Public Radio. The job had come out of the blue, the result of a Hail Mary application she thought had been dismissed out of hand. We threw her a bittersweet going-away party and put the room up for rent. That party was the last time I saw Alice Sharma. She dropped out of contact a few months after her departure. Complete radio silence. I assumed she was just busy, so I carried on with my small but happy life, and waited for her to pop up on television with some important words below her name: chief correspondent, senior analyst, something like that. The radio silence was broken last week, and, for reasons you'll glean further down, I'm less happy about it than I would have thought. I've since read the files a few times, and shown them to some friends. They don't know what to make of it either, but they certainly aren't as concerned as me. They think Alice is just in a creative writing phase, and, if I didn't know her, I'd have to agree. But the thing is, I do know her. Alice Sharma only cares about the truth, and if that's the case with these files, insane as it may sound, then it's very possible my friend has documented her own disappearance. Has anyone here heard of the left/right game? Part 9. Part 10. They say great stories happen to those who can tell them. Robert J. Guthart is an exception to that rule. As I sit at his table, sip his coffee and listen to him recount the past 65 years, it sounds like he's reading off a shopping list. Every event, his first job, his second wedding, his third divorce, none of them receive more than 1 or 2 sentences. Rob plows through the years, the curt, dispassionate curator of his own personal history. Yet the story itself is so fascinating, so rich with moments and so wildly meandering that it somehow stands on its own merits. A.S. You were in Vietnam? How was that for you? That was everything he had to say concerning his first divorce, and the entire Vietnam War. Rob had 4 marriages after that, and even more professions. After the war he worked with a firm of private detectives, got shot at once by the mob, then he became a courier, which is how a poor boy from Alabama got to see the world. As, my mum and dad are from India, yeah. He'd been arrested once in Singapore, after one of his packages had been found to be full of white powder. He spent 3 days locked up before someone got around to checking the substance. It was chalk. ROB, the Japanese are good people. Good manners. But they got all these urban legends and ghost stories that Hiroji was crazy for, spent all his free time chasing them down. Like, you heard of Jorogumo? ROB, well she's this spider lady lives in the Joro Falls round Aizu. Meant to be real pretty but real dangerous. Hiroji took us out there to get a picture of her. ROB nah she didn't show. None of them did. I didn't believe it all until we went to Aokigahara. Aokigahara, affectionately titled the Suicide Forest. The next stop on Rob's adventure. It's an area of woodland at the base of Mount Fuji, a notorious hotspot for young people looking to take their own lives. Hiroji, Rob's ghost-obsessed jailmate turned best friend, took him to Aokigahara to chase Yurei, the ghosts of the forest. ROB, well I ain't gonna ask you to believe me. But I was a PI. Professional cynic. Even I can't deny there was a spirit in those woods. From that moment on, Rob's sentences start getting longer. A childlike excitement creeps into his voice. I get the distinct feeling we're moving beyond background, beyond Rob Guthard's old life, and towards his new one. The one he wants to talk about. The one that led him to contact the show. ROB, it walked up to me through the trees. Looked like static you see on a TV screen, but it had a human shape almost. ROB, it was missing an arm. It reached out to me but I bolted out of that forest so fast. Hiroji never saw it, holds it against me to this day. AS, how many have you proven so far? ROB, since Aokigahara. Ain't none of em had any proof to em. Except for one. That's why I called you guys up. At this point, Rob can't hope to repress his smile. AS, and how did it go? ROB, well. It didn't take long to realize the left/right game is the real thing. The rules of the left/right game are simple. Get in your car and take a drive. Take a left, then the next possible road on the right, then the next possible left. Repeat the process ad infinitum, until you wind up somewhere new. The rules are easy to understand, but Rob says they're not so easy to follow. ROB, there ain't all that many roads where you can turn left and right and keep going. Most of the time you find yourself at a dead end or needing to turn in the wrong direction. Phoenix is built on a grid system so you can keep going left and right as long as you need to. AS, did you move to Phoenix for the left/right game? Rob leaves a short while later to embark on a few errands, prepping the run, as he calls it. He shows me to the guest room and we part ways, on good terms but very much aware of the other's poorly veiled opinions. He knew I saw him as a charming obsessive, chasing after a fairy tale. He saw me as a naive cynic, on the cusp of a new world. All I could think as I heard the front door close is that by tomorrow afternoon, one of us would be right. When I wake up the next morning, Rob is in my room, holding a tray which he'd knocked on the bottom of to rouse me. I don't manage to record the start of our conversation. Rob, I got bananas, strawberries, chocolate syrup. We got some more downstairs, but I wanted you to wake up to something good. We won't be eating this stuff on the road. Rob, we hit the road at 9. I wanted to give you time to get ready before everyone shows up. Rob, we got a 5-car convoy on the road today. They'll be here in an hour. This is the first I've heard of a convoy, and to be honest, I'm surprised. The game is Rob's obsession, and I'm here at his request. The idea that anyone else would have an interest in today's drive is a little perplexing. Rob, if you ain't prepared by the morning of, you ain't prepared. As, thank you. Rob, in fact it's about time I wheeled her out. Fair warning Ms. Sharma, she's a thing of beauty. As, I think you're 2 caterpillar treads short of driving a tank. Rob, not all. This is the unlimited. I like to have a covered car when I head on the road. I wonder if the rest of our convoy would take the game so seriously. Rob, did I not tell you? Oh yeah, we're gonna use call signs on the road, keep communication clear. As, what's your call sign? As, what's my call sign? As, I'm from Bristol. Rob, Bristol. That's fine, I guess. Apollo vaguely resembles his namesake, dark-skinned, tall and noticeably well-built, though it's clear he couldn't be less of a fighter. This Apollo Creed is all smiles and seems to have a penchant for laughing at his own jokes. As, how far have you come? As, and you know Rob from the forums? Apollo, everybody knows Rob, Rob's the god. Ahaha. The rest don't take long to arrive. 2 Minnesotan librarians, also around Rob's age, pull up in a gray Ford Focus. They're brother and sister, and they've shared ghost hunting as a hobby their entire lives. I find it hard to suppress a smile when they meekly introduce themselves as Bonnie and Clyde. As, pleasure to meet you too. He's talking to his sister there, she nods. Clyde is clearly the spokesperson for the pair, yet they both seem incredibly shy. Whether they admire the famous outlaws, or just the name, it's pretty clear they couldn't be more different from the real thing. Lilith, yeah, and he's been recording readings over the years that show subterranean movement. Predictable movement. As, I'll have to check my schedule. Eve, okay cool, let me give you my email. They quickly hurry off to film an intro for their latest video, featuring a quick interview with Rob, who seems pretty welcoming of the attention. The last 2 cars arrive within a few seconds of each other. A lithe, strong-willed older lady who goes by Blue Jay and a younger man going by the call sign Ace. Blue Jay has arrived in a gray Ford Explorer. Ace, much to Rob's annoyance, has arrived in a Porsche. Rob, did you think that's gonna help on the road? I didn't write that. Ace, it's my car. What am I meant to do? It's my car. Rob, you didn't read my itinerary, you got nothing packed in there. Ace, I did read it sir, okay. Calm down. I have a bag, I won't ask you for anything. Rob, well I know that's true. Ace and Rob were off to a bad start. Ace takes a phone call, and despite my best efforts to get an interview with Blue Jay, she doesn't seem interested in talking to a journalist. With 5 cars, and 7 travelers waiting for a green light, Rob hands out radios and charging packs, then launches into a quick safety briefing. Wear seatbelts. Stay in position. Communicate clearly and often. It's at this moment I start to feel a little dismay. I like Rob, and clearly so does everyone else. He'd convinced all of them to drive across the country to join in with his game. I start to worry what will happen in the likely event that the whole thing isn't real. Would Rob lose the respect of his peers? Would he accept failure when it comes? After seeing the effort he's put into these runs, the next few hours have the potential to be wildly uncomfortable. With a smile and a few encouraging words, Rob ends his briefing and beckons me over to the Wrangler. I clamber inside and make myself as comfortable as possible. "Rob, you ready for this, Bristol?" "Yes, I'm ready." "Rob, okay then let's hit the road." The Wrangler pulls out of the driveway, and the convoy follows in order of arrival. Apollo, Bonnie and Clyde, Lilith and Eve, Blue Jay and Ace keep a steady pace behind us as we come up to the first corner. Rob slowly and deliberately turns left, checking on the others in his rear-view mirror. He looks back to the road as Ace's Porsche completes the first turn of the game. Shortly afterwards, Apollo checks in on the CB radio. "Apollo, this is Apollo for Ferryman. How many to more go, Rob?" "Ahahaha. Rob, as many as it takes." I can tell Rob wanted to reserve the radio for something other than Apollo's quips. But he seems to like Apollo enough to let it slide. I'm not sure Ace would have received the same treatment. We take the next right, then another left. Now safely assured that everyone's following correctly, Rob speaks my thoughts aloud. "Rob, you're wondering the same thing Apollo is." "Yes, what do you mean?" "Rob, you're wondering how many turns we're gonna take before we hit some wall or something. Before you find out this is all just a story." "Yes, does that disappoint you?" "Rob, I'd be disappointed if you weren't thinking something like it. But now we're on the road, I gotta say something and you gotta listen to it." Okay. "Rob, we're coming up to a tunnel soon. Any time before we reach it you can get out, walk in any direction you like, and you won't be in the game no more. Once we go through, you gotta retrace the route we took to get yourself back out that tunnel. That's when you're home. And you gotta convince someone to take you back in a car, 'cause I ain't ferrying you back 20 minutes in. You got till the tunnel to skip out on this, understand?" "Yes, I understand. Though I have to say I'm getting little nervous." "Rob, ain't nothing wrong with a little nervous. We've taken 23 turns by this point. Already I feel like we're traversing the city pretty effectively." Rob's heavily modified Wrangler solicits a few impressed glances from passers-by, as well as several honks of respect from other Jeep drivers. Other than those few moments, everything seems completely indistinguishable from a regular morning drive. I even start to worry if there'll be anything at all for this story. Reporter takes drive with interesting man isn't exactly Pulitzer-worthy. Turn 33 leads us onto a short, unassuming street. A row of small businesses in a quiet Phoenician neighborhood, liquor, second-hand clothing, tools and, at the end of the street, a little shop selling antique mirrors. 10 or so people shuffle along the sidewalk, smiling, talking, planning their weekends. The only lone person is a young woman in a gray coat. I briefly glimpse her at the end of the street, standing on our next corner, the back of her coat reflected in 50 old mirrors. Even from a distance I can see that she's sullen, wide-eyed and nervous. She shifts constantly on her feet, tugging at the button of her coat. I look away to write some notes as we roll down the street. When I look up again, the woman is standing by my window, staring right at me. She's smiling, a wide, unfaltering grin that seems almost offensive in its complete insincerity. Gray woman lambs at the gate, hoping for something better than clover when all they find are things worse than slaughter. "Rob, what's happening?" ROB, ignore her. Gray woman, he wanted to leave me so I cut him out. The lake was hungry, it drank the wound clean. AS, miss, are you alright? The smile vanishes, it snaps from her face and suddenly, the woman is furious. Gray woman, what do you think you're doing? Have you gone mad? I reflexively press myself back in my chair as the woman, wild-eyed and gaunt, slams her fists against my window, with every intent of breaking through. Gray woman, would you dance down the lion's tongue? It will shred you, you whore. It will shred you down to your sins. You fucking bastard. Rob puts his foot down, and the Wrangler rolls defiantly away from the woman. As we turn the corner I watch her as she retches, her every movement cradled in abject hysteria. She yells despairingly at the rest of the convoy, bursting into tears when the last car passes her by. As she shrinks into the rear-view mirror, I see her turn to a large mirror on the side of the shop, which the owner is in the process of polishing. I watch as she walks up to it, and with a convulsant scream, slams her head into the glass. The mirror cracks around her forehead, the owner jumps back in shock, and as the woman pulls her head from the mirror's surface, the fractured spider's web is dripping red. It all happens in a split second, and she quickly swerves from my view as we take the next left. AS, Rob, what was that? ROB, she's there sometimes. AS, on that street? ROB, on the 34th turn. AS, who is she? ROB, I don't know. She's never acted out that much before though. Must be a special trip. I find Rob's lack of concern a little unpleasant, and his implication that this woman's ravings were the symptom of an internet game leaves me more than a little perturbed. As I see it, there are a few explanations for what just happened, and none of them lead to a comforting conclusion. If we had just encountered a bona fide crazy person, then one could argue that Rob is just seeing what he wants to see. Maybe he'd bought into the game's story so much that every strange but explainable occurrence would be rationalized as the next step in his favorite paranormal narrative. Alternatively, the woman could have been an actor, a more elaborate theory sure, but not unheard of. People have lied to the show before and Rob was receiving a ton of publicity for this attempt from Lilith, Eve, and I. I admit, Rob didn't seem like a liar, but good liars never do. There is a third alternative however. An alternative which, if you put logic aside, explains the all-troubling little details that I couldn't help but notice. Because as strange as the gray woman was, isn't it stranger that no one on the street would react? I couldn't recall a single glance in her direction by anybody on the sidewalk. Perhaps that theory falls apart when you consider the shock on the mirror seller's face, but, when I think about it, he only reacted once the mirror shattered, and even then, I feel like his attention was on the mirror itself. The radio crackles. Lilith to Bristol. Sarah. Eve got that on camera. Do you have audio? AS, I think it picked her up. Lilith, my God, that was so weird. Can you send us the file when we stop? Can you ask Ferryman when we're stopping? AS, when's our stopping point? ROB, for them, in about 30 minutes. For you. Well, you tell me. Rob turns off a busy street just before a large intersection, onto a much quieter stretch of two-lane road. Ahead of us the road slopes downward, leading into an underpass, which disappears into darkness. We'd arrived at the tunnel. AS, what is this supposed to pass under? ROB, ain't supposed to pass under anything, it's just there. AS, and if we weren't playing the game? ROB, then it won't show. The question is, are you playing the game or not? Rob turns to me. It's the first time he's taken his eyes off the road since we started. He pulls the car to a slow stop at the mouth of the tunnel. "ROB, you get out now, you can go wherever you want to go, but through there you'll need a car to get yourself home and, like I said, mine ain't turning round for a long while. You understand?" It's a dramatic statement, but unsettlingly, it doesn't feel like he's attempting to dramatize. It feels like I'm having something genuinely asked of me. Am I ready for what's to come? Do I accept the risks involved? Do I consent to be taken down this road, and the next road, and the next? Am I prepared to see this game through, real or otherwise, to its end? A.S. What are you waiting for? Rob smiles, and turns back to the road. He picks up the CB radio, holds down the button on the side. The microphone crackles. "ROB, this is ferryman to all cars. Anyone want to step out, then pull to the side now. Otherwise, stay in formation and have some supplies at hand. We got a long ways to go." Much like the game I'm so tentatively playing, my view of Robert J. Guthard seems to change direction frequently. I'd heard all about his life, but I'm sure that I know him. I like the guy, but I'm not certain that I trust him. And though I admire his dedication to the left/right game, I'm not sure I'll like where it might lead us. Yet as he takes us into the tunnel, his face vanishing and reappearing under the dim sodium lights, I can tell he expects this trip to be a major step in his already impressive story, and this time, for better or for worse, I'm along for the ride.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in a coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is Horror Slop.
The previous tenant of my new flat left a survival guide. I think I'm going to need more than a guide, by Nutatown JAM. So much has happened in the last 24 hours. I'm so stressed and I've barely slept since I discovered that Jamie was missing. It's starting to make me feel a little twitchy. But I thought I'd better update you guys. I was overwhelmed by all the suggestions you gave me and have taken more than a few of them on board. I'm definitely going to be getting a huge planter full of sage for the balcony, and I did spill a little salt in my doorway. I'm sorry to disappoint, but that didn't help at all. I was going crazy. And a few hours after my last post, Jamie still hadn't returned. He had been gone for almost 24 hours. His work have called me multiple times. I don't know what to say, so I just keep ghosting the calls. I was bang in the middle of the danger time when I decided checking the lift had to be my first step. But I wasn't going to break that rule. I stepped inside the lift, rode it up and down a few floors and searched the entire perimeter with a phone torch for anything I could find. I found nothing. Jamie had completely disappeared. Sobbing and exhausted, I rode back to floor 7 and turned my key in flat 42, the perfect home that felt anything but home at that point. I sat at the cheap flat pack dining table we'd managed to put together on move-in day and cried. My hands shaking as I held my phone. I was flitting between reading all your comments and contemplating calling the police for an hour. But I decided to call my friend Georgia instead. I needed a real person here. Things were so crazy I wasn't sure the police would be able to help with what little information I had. But I knew I needed to sound it out with someone. I'll spare you the details again, but I told her everything. She promised she'd be with me in the late morning. She had to take her younger brother to school. I waited anxiously. Not before arming every room exactly as advised. Before I knew it, I looked at the clock and it was 8:23. I had around half an hour until the postman was due to show up. There was no way I was missing him today. I stood by the door looking vacantly at the wood, like someone in a film who was possessed. The exhaustion was really setting in, but Jamie was all I could think of. Pure adrenaline was keeping me standing. At 8:52 I opened the door. The next 2 minutes were the longest of my life, but when I saw him a wave of relief swept my entire body. Right on cue, 8:5 for the postman, Ian Flanders stood in front of me, a smile that barely hid his concern covering his younger-than-expected face. He didn't look old enough to have been the postman for over 35 years, but I was too distracted by the answers that I needed from him to care. "You must be the new tenant," he stated, but in a way that it sounded like a question. I struggled with my answer, so I got straight to the point. "Mrs. Hemmings left me a note. She said to speak to you if..." I'm glad Prue still thinks that highly of me. "I will miss that old girl," he said with a coy smile as he reached the end of the note. "Can you help me or not?" I had no time for his ego trip over a moved-on neighbor. His demeanor was thankfully non-threatening but extraordinarily cocky. He was the sort of man I imagined in a betting shop, rubbing his grubby hands on notes as he bragged over a win. He didn't ask as he lit a cigarette in my living room. I didn't question it. We would usually smoke outside, but I wasn't going to argue over technicalities. I grabbed a bowl for the ash and lit one too. Let's start with the things in the lift. My boyfriend is missing and he took the lift at 3:15 over 24 hours ago. We hadn't got this note yet. I haven't heard from him since. I need to get him back. I barked at him as if the louder I spoke the more I could influence his answer. But nothing prepared me for what he said. "There must be something I can do," I pleaded. "There are things I've heard to bring back those who are lost, but I've never seen solid proof they work. It would be irresponsible of me to tell you to do something that might get you killed too. It's nice here, honest, just get over him and live the status quo. Sorry if I sound harsh, I don't mean to, but you seem like a decent young lady and I don't want to see you go too soon." I asked about what Mrs. Hemmings had seen in the lift and if they were sure it happened to all who entered it. I refused to believe that Jamie was dead. There had to be something I could do, and if I knew what I was dealing with I could be better prepared. It was awful what happened. I wasn't there, but this is what I was told. Little Lila was such a cute kid. She used to open the door and give me a tip when I delivered the post. She was Prue's granddaughter. Lila was her son's little girl, and that night she was staying over for the first time. Prue finally felt confident that she could protect Lila from all the strange things that happen here. "What are the creatures? Have you ever actually seen them?" I asked. "No one really knows what they are, love. There's something to do with the building and all its quirks, no one's ever seen them elsewhere. We don't know where they came from, just that they're here. They're a little smaller than humans, but they're a similar shape. They come with grotesque rodent-like features, and are far larger than any rodent could be. Like rodent children, I suppose. They have 2 sharp rows of teeth per jaw and are consistently hungry. The creatures left over were incredibly dangerous and seemingly impossible to eradicate, so the residents struck a deal. A deal that they will be left unharmed and allowed to live in the building in return for the residents' safety at all times, but if anyone wanders into the lift between 1:11 and 3:33 a.m. they are fair game. This timeframe is the period the creatures are at their most frenzied, and restricting them to the lift was safer for all parties. God help anyone who encounters them during those hours. They've been here ever since, claimed lots of unsuspecting people avoiding the stairs, but nothing like when they first arrived. A few got put down for not holding up their end of the bargain, but we haven't had an incident outside the lift in years. Count yourself lucky you missed that crisis. Everything here's pretty peaceful right now. I'm sorry about your boyfriend. I really have to go, I'm late for my round. He scrawled his phone number on a bit of paper and handed it to me. Emergencies only, I don't like to be bothered. And I will. He snapped back, when there's something I can help with. I can't resurrect your boyfriend and I don't like to be late delivering the post. I will see you soon, love. I was in shock, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I couldn't believe he was leaving me after the information overload and the small ray of hope he had lit inside me and then squashed. I'll call the police. I shouted, desperate to feel as if I was solving this somehow. And with that he shut the door behind him. I opened it again, I had so much more to ask, but he was gone, no sign of him anywhere in the corridor. Georgia arrived not long after Ian had left. I, of course, asked if she had seen him in the corridor, to try and affirm to myself that he was real, but she hadn't. She looked at me worried, and held me as I sobbed and told her what the postman had said about Jamie and the creatures. Georgia had been my best friend for many years, she stuck up for me when I was too scared to do it for myself and had always been the brave one of the two of us. I felt safe around her, so after hours of crying and despairing at the way my life had changed in a matter of days, I finally decided to take a nap. It was early evening and Georgia was watching some TV. Just there for me if I needed her. The flat number. Every now and again someone will knock at your door claiming to live in one of these flats and ask to borrow some sugar. They will seem entirely average, but you must shut and lock the door immediately. I installed 2 extra security bolts to avoid these fuckers. I don't like to swear at my age, but they really are fuckers. Prue's warning echoed in my mind and I couldn't take my eyes off Natalia. Something really was off about her. I looked at Georgia sat on the sofa next to her and noticed her sweating. Anyone in the UK knows that it's been a hot for few days, but this was beyond just the ambient temperature. Her entire body was dripping. I screamed and screamed, but no one came to my door. I tried to grab my phone to call Postman Ian, but the wooden surface I had set it down on burned my fingers to the touch and forced me to recoil. She was going to set the whole flat alight. My actions needed to be quicker than a phone call. It sounds awful, but I left her at the park across the road from the building. With no phone or ID. She's my best friend and I want to be there, but if I own up to involvement in injuries that bad, they'll suspect me, and I lose the already slim chance that Jamie might be savable. It doesn't mean I don't care about Georgia, but she's alive. I won't believe Jamie isn't until I see it. I want to leave. So badly. But this was mine and Jamie's first home together. If he's alive, and I can save him, then I want it to be here for him to come back to, and if he's dead, and the postman is right, then I don't know if I can leave his memory behind. There's only one person I think could help me right now. So tonight I'm going to do some research, hunt down an address, and tomorrow morning I'm going to visit Prudence Hemmings.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I did it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same that crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.